Good morning, everyone. We're excited to welcome you to the December 11th, 2025 special board meeting for strategic planning for Arlington Heights School District 25. Today's meeting is a data retreat for the strategic plan and is designated as a special board meeting due to the participation of more than 2 of our board members. We want all of you to feel welcome today, and you can say now you've officially attended a board meeting. To make you feel welcome, down that hallway where you came in, you also find the restrooms and a drinking fountain, and you can always please help yourself as you need. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And Lana, if you could please call the roll.
Tranter?
Here.
Jogi?
Here.
Scapalato?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Buchberger?
Here.
Thank you, Lana. And would you please stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance? The flag is in the back corner. At every board meeting, we reserve time for public comment, so now is that time on the agenda for community input. If a member of the public wishes to address any item on our agenda, we ask that you please complete one of the blue forms that's on the table by the door and hand the card to Lana O'Brien. Lana, do we have any? We don't have any blue slips, so we have a quick item of business for the board members. This comes from our personal and planning, and it's an action item. So board members, I move that the Board of Education approve the separation agreement with Ricky Lewandowski as presented. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. Lana, if you could please call the vote.
Tranter?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Buchberger?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Thank you, Lana. The motion carries 6-0. Well, now let's get to the heart of our work today. So we are going to move into this strategic plan data retreat, and I'm pleased to turn it over back to you, Dr. K.
Thank you, President Scapalato. I will let you go back to your seat. Thank you very much. And as Lana is prepping all of her stuff and walking away, I just wanted to give her a big thank you for making sure all of this stuff has been prepared. Thank you. This obviously does not happen easily by 8 a.m. today, so she's put in a lot of effort to make sure all of the materials are ready for us. And I just want to make sure everyone is aware that anytime we are speaking in a microphone, it's being live streamed on our YouTube channel because it is an open board meeting. It's a special board meeting. When I'm not on a microphone, no one will hear that. So the microphones are at the tables only for the board members for what just happened. I'll probably walk over and collect them, or I may leave them there just for the very end because when we close, we have to take a vote. But I just wanted you to be aware visually, we have a camera up in the corner. That will be on the whole time, but the only sound that's recorded is when you're in a microphone. So once we get into this, Perry will be talking on the microphone. I'll be talking on the microphone. Brian Waterman might be talking on the microphone. At your table groups, we're not turning those microphones on. Does that make sense? So you're free to talk. I just wanted to make sure you know we're still being live recorded, though, if that makes sense. So the microphones at the tables are not for you to turn them on. They're just for the board members that take votes. So let me do some introductions. I think you saw all of us on Zoom. We look a little different in person. I've gained a couple pounds since Zoom. I do like being in person because I can tell when we're all here and we all have the right link. Hey, that joke hit well. All right, this is going well. So I just wanted to say thanks again for participating. I know this takes a lot for you to take a day off of work or off of class. I'm sorry I don't have homework passes for the students that are here. You can try and tell your teachers, Dr. K said I don't need to make up the homework, but I don't know how far that's going to go. You'll see how much influence I really have. So we have our 2 facilitators. I want to welcome our 2 facilitators, Perry Soldwedell. Thank you for joining us, Perry. and Brian Waterman. Thanks for joining us in person, Brian. And thanks to all of you again for being here. The charge for today is to make sure you are fully engaged and you take the opportunity to share your voice. You're not here to just sit and smile. You're here to tell us your thoughts. So when those opportunities arise, make sure you take that opportunity to share your voice. There are times, adults and students, where some people don't hit the pause button on themselves. So it's on us to try to help facilitate voices being shared among other people. I'm guilty of it, guys. I could talk for another 30 minutes right now, but I don't have that time. So I just want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's voice and their time in joining us. We are a hard start at 8. We're going to be a hard stop at noon. So we want to fill that time with your voices. So I just want to make sure we recognize, think about how much you're sharing and how much other people are contributing throughout the day in your conversations. We want to hear all voices. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to kick it off to Perry. Thanks, Perry.
Good morning, everyone. You're all very special, but there's one group that I want to recognize right from the beginning, and that is, would you, if you are a student, please stand. I will tell you that one of the hallmarks of the process is having student voice. And we get student voice in many different ways, but very few use students actually as part of the strategic planning team. And I would tell you that it makes an incredible difference to have students at the table. You are at a table where all stakeholder groups are represented. And that's purposeful, because we want different perspectives. If you remember the room you were in, if you attended the orientation, the people who are at your table were in your room. Next time we are together, you will be all shuffled up and you'll be with completely different people. And when we have our third meeting together, we will reshuffle you then. It's an opportunity to get to know and hear perspectives differently. And that's really important, because in this process, somewhere along the line, we have to have a way to arrive at consensus. And the way we do that is to keep you very engaged by all 8 table teams producing a product. And then we look at all of the products and we see what are the similarities that run across all tables. And it's our way of getting at consensus. So consensus sometimes can be questioned, but understanding the process, we'll find that sometimes you might have an idea and it'll make it all the way to the plan. And sometimes you might have an idea and it won't make the plan. The only reason that it wouldn't make the plan is that the majority of people, and I shouldn't really use majority because in our case we use an 80% or above level. If 80% or above are all for it, it makes the plan. If not, it doesn't. And one of the things we have to help people with is it isn't a good idea that you have. It's just that we know that if we're really going to make these things happen, we can't have 25 new things going on all at the same time. So the greatest challenge that you will have as a strategic plan team is to figure out what are the very key top things that we want to spend our resources of people, time, and money to make District 25 better. The good news for all of you, and I'm pretty sure every person in this room knows it, you are already a great district. And today you're going to learn about the performance of the district. You're going to get a lot of data. I promise you there will not be one person in the room that will leave here with information they didn't have before they came, even Dr. K. Yeah. It's just interesting how this works. But our goal today is that when we leave here, we have a shared understanding of the current performance of the district, because we can't really get into strategic planning without knowing the essential question for the day, and that is, where are we now? So as we begin, because my screen was locked, I couldn't have this beautiful picture of Dr. K welcoming you all today. I need for you to know that I have been doing strategic planning for over 25 years. I'm a former superintendent, a former assistant superintendent, a principal, a teacher, and during my time in 2 different districts, I had the sole responsibility to facilitate strategic planning, and I went through a lot of training. However, my most recent training was done in 2014, and it changed my life. I was at the good fortune of being trained and certified by the Strategy Management Group Balanced Scorecard Institute out of George Washington University. They are the largest international certifiers and trainers for those who facilitate strategic planning in the world. Their top group is healthcare. Their next group is business, Fortune 500. They have small business. They have a lot of governmental units, the largest being city government. And the smallest group is education. And if we wanted to look at education, we would find out that the majority that they train and facilitate are universities and colleges, and not as many K-12 districts. But they're growing that by leaps and bounds all the time. So I want you to know that the process they're using today isn't mine. It's one that I have absolute confidence in. I know it makes a considerable difference, and it is that group that brings us all of the good tools and processes, skills, and knowledge that we'll be using during our time together. So, we've been through the orientation. Today we're at the data retreat. We have 3 more down the road. Everybody knows the dates. Everybody knows the time. And as Dr. K said, we always start on time. We always end on time. And I will tell you that today we are going to need the full 4 hours because there's a lot of data and information to get to you. But please, no one, don't worry. At 12 o'clock, we'll all walk out that door. So as we do that, we have a variety of different things we do together. And the 3 big meetings are the most important one. At the top of this diagram, there are 3 essential questions. There's actually 4, but we're going to address 3. The one in green is today. Where are we now? We really can't improve anything until we know where we are now. There are so many things that are going well in the district. They're strengths. If we just keep doing it, we're humming. We're just moving right along the way we should. So where are we now is going to give us a chance to celebrate those things, but it's also going to identify for us what I call low-hanging fruit. They're opportunities for us. They're challenges for us. You wouldn't be doing strategic planning if there wasn't a mindset of continuous improvement throughout the district. No matter how good we are today, we can be better tomorrow. And our job is going to be to find and celebrate those things that are just fantastic, we're proud of. It's also our job to find those things that if we work a little bit harder, will be better than we are today. So today is all about understanding district strengths, district weaknesses, district opportunities, and district threats. At 12 o'clock, we will all have at each table a chart that lists the top 10 strengths of the district, the top 10 weaknesses of the district, the top 10 opportunities for the future, and the top 10 threats. Somebody might say, well, what is a threat? A threat is something that's going on around us that impacts us, but we don't have direct control over it. But we have to keep our eye on it. I'll give you a couple examples. One is social media. It's there. It's out there. Very hard to control, but we have to deal with it. Another one is state funding. We never know for sure. Are we going to get the money we're promised for this? Are there mandates that are unfunded? What's going on in the political world that's impacting our funds? I would also tell you there is a difference between a weakness and an opportunity. And I'll repeat this later, but a weakness is something that we're doing, but we're not doing it as well as we would like to. An opportunity is something we're not doing, but it's a great idea to think about for the future. So today is all about producing a product called the SWOT analysis. When we're done today with that, we're going to share that product far and wide. We're going to let students look at it, middle school students. We're going to let teachers, non-certified staff look at it. We're obviously going to let the board look at it. I'm thrilled that we have as many board members here, because my greatest fear is that I bring a group of people together, we work hard, we get a strategic plan, and the only group that can improve it is the board, and we get that far and the board says no. Well, with 5 people here, and those 5 people carrying our work and our messages to the full board, we're going to know. There will be no surprises for anyone. So we'll definitely have support for the plan when we're done. So with that in mind, I'm going to get us into the work for today. Those are those 3 questions. I can state them in many ways. I put it this way because it's a pathway that we're on. And I put it this way because there's an order to the way we do it. So we're going to start with where we are now. Our next time is where do we want to be in the future? And our last time is how do we get from where we are to where we want to be in the future. I'm going to turn it over to the facilitator who is with me. He is the superintendent of Lyons Township High School District 204. He's gone through this process several years ago. He tells great stories about what has worked in the process for them, what hasn't worked in the process for them. And so he's going to walk you through a little more of what the process is all about.
Thank you, Perry. Welcome. Thanks so much for having me back. As been said before, my name is Brian Waterman. Honored to be here. Kind of walking this journey with all of you. There's a lot of pressure there that I tell good stories. I really don't tell good stories, but I'll try to come up with some good ones throughout the morning. Interestingly, I'm actually a relative newbie to strategic planning. This is my 27th year in education in a variety of different roles. Started as a teacher and then was an assistant principal at both Westmont High School and Glenbard North High School, was principal at Hinsdale South, also at Lyons Township High School, and then have been superintendent. But I've only been a part of a strategic planning process for about 5 years, because the first time I ever had that experience was when our district went through it 5 years ago with Perry. And what I learned very quickly was just the transformational effect that strategic planning can have on all levels of an organization, all levels of a school community. And so it's something that I've become pretty passionate about. And as I said on the Zoom call a month ago, there's a little selfish part of me, because we're about a year behind you guys, where about a year from now, we're going to be going through this refresh process as well. And so I'm hoping to share some knowledge throughout the time together, but also take some ideas about what we can do next year. So one of the things I like to do when I come into a project, or if I have a group coming together to a table, I always like to build some context for what we're doing today. How does it relate to what we're doing overall, and where, basically put it into context. And so I'm going to kind of go back a couple slides that Perry talked about, but this screen, I think, in my mind, really puts us in context with where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. And so as he mentioned, that green column is today, right? This is where we are now. This is our current reality. You're going to be probably sick of data by noon today, because you're getting so much information and so much data. But it's such a necessary part of what we do in this process is where we're at now. If you go back to that left column, where do we want to be? That's going to be the January 27th. I think it's January 27th, right? Is the next one? That's the next day. And that's going to give us a chance to dream a little bit and say, where do we want to be overall as a district? Then that third column from the left, how will we get to where we want to be? That's going to be that February 24th date, I think, because that third date is, okay, now we know our current reality. Now we know we've dreamt a little bit. We know where we're going or where we want to go. How are we going to get there? All of the rest of that, the blue and the orange boxes there, the what are we learning, the monitoring, the adjusting, the action planning, that's all going to happen after this school year. So once we get through this school year, the board adopts a plan, then essentially all those blue and orange boxes are going to be looking ahead to the next year, and that's when you really get the exciting work of living, which is just as fun. All right, so then as we talked about, we're sort of in step one of a three-step process that's going to play out between now and February. Kind of talk through that. I'll say this again, and Perry mentioned this, but that whole continuous improvement is such an important part of not only schools but districts. You have an awesome district here, right? And it would be very easy for everyone in the school community to say, we're good, we're just fine with where we're at. But you guys don't do that, because you're an awesome district filled with awesome people. And so you want to look at, what are our strengths? Let's build upon those strengths. And then also, let's take a look at where we could be a little better on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, and let's dig into those as well. So that's really continuous improvement, I believe, is the foundational principle of why you do strategic planning. So what are we going to do today? You're going to hear three different presentations, one kind of grounded in academic achievement, one grounded in climate and culture, and then one grounded in what I would call resources, like the financial data, the facilities data, the technology data, all the different areas that support those academics and climate and culture at the schools. And then, as Perry mentioned, that SWOT analysis, right? Let's take a look at what our strengths are. Let's take a look at what our weaknesses are. Let's take a look at our opportunities, and then our threats as well. So that's kind of the structure of today. We kind of talked through this. This is just kind of what we're doing, is painting that picture. And I'm going to move to this slide because we want to get you guys talking. So we've kind of laid the groundwork for what today is about, which is all about that data and looking at data. So at your tables, let's spend a couple minutes just having a conversation around this question. What words come to mind when you think about participating in a data retreat? data may not be an exciting word. Retreat is an exciting word. So that's kind of interesting, right? So talk about that. Okay, take about 30 more seconds to finish up those conversations. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to spend just a couple minutes there kind of digging into this question of what words come to mind when you think participating in a data retreat. Okay, so the key words there, data retreat. So I need one really brave table to raise their hand and kind of give a share out for what your conversation, what direction your conversation went in. So what words came to mind when your table talked about data retreat? Thank you.
So we talked about numbers, and then we talked about whether or not we like numbers, and many of us don't like numbers per se, but like that we can use data to tell a story, and that's what Kendra shared that they tried to do with this data is tell us a story so we could paint a picture of our district as a whole instead of just looking at a number.
Okay, so this table hates math. Just kidding. This table hates numbers, but loves the stories that numbers can tell, right? And isn't that why we use numbers and why we use data? Ultimately to tell a story, because without that story, they're kind of useless, right? So, okay, so one more table to share out. There you go.
We talked about stories as well, but just how all of us have a different story and a different perspective and how we're excited to hear everyone's opinions.
Awesome. So one of the things I think about is, especially with the word retreat, education, this will not be a shocker, but education is filled with people who are high-paid doers, right? We are doers more than anything. And the idea of a retreat is a little bit antithetical to the idea of doing, because what it allows us to do is sort of get out of that day-to-day action planning world and just talk and brainstorm and ideate and all the things that are absolutely necessary to the work that we do. That's an important part of ultimately getting on a better path, is time to do that. So when I think of retreat, and I say this to our team all the time, is that like many schools in the summertime, administrative teams, different community groups, the reason we do that is so that we can step outside of the day-to-day world that we're living in the action planning world, and the doing world, and we get a chance to dream a little bit, vision cast, and kind of think about, you know, the ideal scenario. So really good answers on that, on the idea of data retreat. So now let's look at the next question as a table. Similar, but think about your district's current use of data. What words come to mind when you think the district's current use of data? I think my mic's cutting out. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right, so take a couple minutes to talk about the district's current use of data. Okay, take 30 more seconds to answer that question. The district, what we think of when we think of the district's current use of data. Okay, by now you hopefully had a chance to spend just a couple minutes on the district's current use of data. I would love to have two more tables that haven't already talked. Give me two other brave tables that can share just a real quick synopsis of what your table talked about when it comes to the district's current use of data. Come on, someone raise your hand, please, please. There we go. Thank you. All the way here in the back. All right.
I was just saying, as a parent, like, I don't always see the data. I think that there's like an opportunity to improve on how we communicate and share the great data that we have, and like draw people in to actually look at it. Yeah.
Same.
No, we said the same thing. Like the teacher said, you know, they have a ton, they use it, and the parents were basically like, oh, like we never see it or have real visibility outside of like our students. Like, yes, we get maps, whatever, but no.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's and I think that's something probably every district wrestles with, right? Sometimes, you know, really the challenge with that in a lot of cases is schools have so much different data from the macro level to the micro level, and the challenge is never whether to share, it's what to share, and so that's something I think a lot of schools wrestle with as well. One more thought that came up during your table conversations with the district's current use of data.
So we also, is it on? Okay, we also talked about the district's use of thought exchange, so more anecdotal data where people add thoughts and we can kind of see where we agree and where we are different.
These are great segues into like today, into the rest of today, because those are the types of ideas as you go through the data retreat, you're asked to identify those strengths. Those are perfect examples of things that we want to get down on the paper so that we record them. Here's what I'll make one small comment about data within schools, And it's this comment you probably hear a lot is that we're data rich and we're data analysis poor. And sometimes I think that we overthink the word data analysis, and we create this this dream scenario where we have all this data and all this crazy technology, and we're doing this high-level analysis of the data. And if we're not doing that, then we're not analyzing it. Sometimes it's just a matter of bringing survey data to a team and analyzing it for themes, having a 30-minute conversation and saying, what are the themes present in the data that we see? So sometimes I think schools overthink the analysis of data. It doesn't have to be this, really well thought out long-term analysis. It can be really simple things like having a team meeting, looking at data, coming up with a few themes that then lead to action. So I think that's something important. Really good thoughts. Okay, so moving on real quickly. I'm going to skip a couple of this. We kind of talked about this, but like we know, data, as this table said, data tells a story. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data. And it's all data, right? Sometimes that's another thing we do is we focus on the quantitative data versus the perception or the qualitative data, which is just as important. And so, analyzing can help tell a story. I want to skip to this slide here because this is an important part of today. What you're going to see as you go through this exercise is that there's a meat. I have ideas. I want to make sure I get my opinions out. And Perry said that great this morning, that we need everyone's voice here. And there's going to be a component of the me. There's also going to be a component of the we part of this collective group is giving ideas, giving suggestions. And then there's the us, which is the entire district's shared understanding of those overall strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we can't have 25 focus areas. Ultimately, this exercise is meant to really get us down to a few ideas, a few goals that we want to move this district forward. So that's in a nutshell kind of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going today. I'll turn this back over to Perry.
Thank you. Everybody has a folder, and in the folder you have all of the different materials for reference that if we need to go pull something out, we'll find it. The one that I would like you to pull out and have in front of you is the second handout, and it's called the participant handout. They're all separated with a gold sheet. The second one is the participant handout. The reason that I pulled that one out is that this is the one for you to take any notes. As we go through some of our data presentations, which we're getting ready to do real soon, this will be a helpful one to you. Okay? So as we think about that, the refresh of a strategic plan is done when the district prepares all the data of what's been happening and brings it to the team, and the team reacts to the data. If we were to back up 6 years ago, I facilitated a strategic plan in this district, and we didn't do a refresh. We did what we call a deep dive. In that case, we started with blank pieces of paper, and we came up with our own ideas. The refresh is being done because the board and the management team feels like we're on the right track. We've been doing great things. We've been celebrating, but there are things still left to be done. But new things have happened in the last 5 years, so we're going to refresh the current plan. So that's what we're about to embark on, is the idea of a refresh. When we get into the analysis piece, which is the last half of this morning, all of the different reports that we'll be referring to are in your folder. So you will have the opportunity that if you need to go look at something, you have a copy of it right there in front of you. Okay? So a couple of things to do. I'm going to skip along here. Really, perceptions was mentioned by Brian. Perceptions is a really big piece of it because when we think about perceptions, perceptions can be right, perceptions can be wrong. I can have a perception that we have a lot of disciplinary problems in District 25. And you're going to learn when you get to look at the data, we really don't. Doesn't mean that we don't have a few, but when we compare that data with what's going on in other districts around us, we learn that the behavior piece of it is always something we want to keep our eye on, but it isn't one of the most urgent things for us to address because there's very little of it. Okay? So perceptions are important because sometimes people have perceptions because they lack data. They don't have the correct story. And so we need to understand perceptions are important. I want to go back to thought exchange. That was something that was mentioned by a table over here. Thought exchange is a wonderful tool. And when we are done with all three of our sessions, we'll be using thought exchange to allow people who aren't sitting in this room right now to see our work and tell us what they think. We're going to learn what they like, what they can support. If there's something missing, they think that we need to reconsider. So wanting you to know that it's not just the responsibility of the 60-some people who are sitting here today, but the fact that we will get voices, and lots of voices, into what our work is about and how we can make it better. Okay? So I want to keep us on track, and I want to move us into the round of presentations that are being done by the district. We asked the district to do 3 presentations. These were outlined earlier for you. What's going to happen is we're going to ask that tables 1, 2, and 3 go together. 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, and 6 will go together. 7 and 8. You're going to rotate through 3 45-minute presentations. During the 45 minutes, there'll be time for you to interact with the presenters and ask any questions. And you will notice in your participant handout that there is a place for you to take any notes. Your job is basically to decide from what they're telling you what's going well and what might be something for improvement. Okay? There's a rotational part to this where we're going to be moving from room to room to room. Okay? And I'm going to ask that Dr. K kind of give us that, and I think you have something on the table to help you.
Thank you, Perry. So each table has one chart in the middle of the table that looks like this. It describes the rotation. I kept it pretty simple. So if you're in groups 1, 2, or 3, if you're at table 1, could you raise your hand? Table 2, raise your hand. Table 3, could you raise your hand? So they're all in my case, the back of the room. You guys are all staying here. You guys don't need to move. If you're table 6, raise your hand. 7, 8, the 3 closest to me, you guys will be going to our, sorry, I went too fast on my numbers. I was trying to keep it easy. Joe, next time kick me on that, would you? All right, let's 1, 2, and 3. We know who you are. You're staying here, you're not moving. If your tables 4, 5, and 6, let's go table 4. 5, 4 and 5 are in the middle, and 6 right here. You guys will be getting up. When you exit, you're going to go right. You're going to go all the way down the hallway. It's not that hard. This building's fairly simple. All the way down the hallway to the tech lab. There's one room everyone's going to be going into. That's tables 4, 5, and 6. And 7 and 8, you guys are in what we call room 110. When you go out these doors, just keep going straight. Once you get past the entrance, take your first left. Somebody will be there to guide you, but your 2 tables will be going straight and then left. The purpose of separating is so that we are in smaller groups, more opportunities for dialogue. So I hope we all learn a lot. Once we hit the next time frame for change, which will be, it looks like, at 9:30, we're going to do the next rotation. So it's important for at least one person in your group to know where you go next. So that's where this will guide the rotation. No. The one thing you could bring if you wanted to, you could bring your name badge or your card, your name card on the table. You could bring that. I'm trying to think through the benefit of it. So I don't know if you need to bring that. So I saw somebody in the crowd thinking that might be a benefit. I don't know if it is yet. So what I want to do is walk through tables 1, 2, and 3. You're staying with me. When we're finished, I will tell you where to go, but I need to focus on the other groups that won't be here. So I'm going to focus on groups 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6, you guys are starting in the tech lab all the way down to the right. You guys may get up and you guys may go. 7 and 8, just pause. Let's get you guys comfortable. We're going to change our direction of attention. I'm finding my home. This feels comfortable right here. All right, we're just going to change direction as to where you're viewing. We'll use this as our guide. You're going to hear 2 presentations in this section of 45 minutes. It's the high quality staff goal and the family and community goal. And then we will transition you to the next section. So the point of this is to give you a flavor of the data that we have in these 2 categories. You should have a document where you can take some notes. I will admit it's not highlighted perfectly for you with Post-it notes as to which section, but we did put gold pages in there to highlight that this is a different section you're moving into. So we do have the presentation printed out. It is buried in the back if you're really interested. We also have it on large display right here. But if you wanted to thumb through there and find it, again, the gold pages separate all the different sections. Or you can just focus here and take notes. Yeah. That is the one Perry pulled out for us, yes. Yeah. So that's a great place to take notes. You okay if I jump in? Wonderful. Let's do it. All right. So one of the key goals. Well, give me a second. Give me a second. Nine. There we are. Now I'm feeling more comfortable. I don't want to give you all the information from the next one. We put it all consolidated into one. So there we go. Now I'm feeling more comfortable. So this is the language that the last strategic plan, the current one we're living, landed on. So it was strengthen family community relationships to enhance learning, teaching partnerships, and then there were 2 strategy comments that were agreed upon. Improving classroom, school, and district connections, collaboration and communication with our families and community to enhance external relationships, trust, respect, commitment, engagement, satisfaction, and develop effective partnerships with community agencies, higher education, and 214. So one of the, please. You certainly can. It's going to be in the back. Now I'd go left. Now you're in it. All right, I see 2 people have found it. Oh, don't be sorry. You're in it, Amy. That's the one. How are you? All right, thanks for helping your neighbors. Ed, you found it? It is this one. It's buried within this one. So as you are looking for it, you are close. You'll know if you see the green headers.
I just need a staple.
I don't know where those came from.
The way back, all the way in the back.
I think you need to go into the previous section
Oh my God.
before that golden
Okay.
page.
Okay, so we got him, but that's not what we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're in the right presentation. So keep
Half the battle.
Kendra says we look good now. I'm not so confident. You are in the right section, yes. You are in the right section. You are definitely in the right section, yeah. Now that you've found the green headers. So I think most of us have found it. I'll explain why it's a little challenging when you think you've found it. What we did is we put one Google slide deck together with all 3 presentations into one. So when you find it, you now have all 3 presentations you're going to see. So ours have the green headlines to start. Family and Community has green, and High Quality Staff, I think, has yellow. So those are the visuals you're looking for, the green and yellow. That's when you kind of know, oh, I think I'm in the right spot. And just as a pro tip, if you found the right section, you now have all of the other 2 presentations too. Color headers will be different. All right. So one of the strategies we put into place because of this goal was the district dish. Does anyone know what the district dish is? Do you know the intent of the district dish? What is the intent of the district dish, Sean? Yeah, so this one is directly purposeful to directly communicate to the whole community. So all of the staff receive it. Anybody who has a student in District 25 receives it via email. It's done every 2 weeks, and you can also sign up for it if you don't have children in the community. And if you don't have children in the community, I believe if you did, your email still lives and you'll receive the dish until you say unsubscribe. So it's our intentional way of not trying to bombard the inbox of all of our community members and all of our staff, but we also need a way to make sure we have an avenue to communicate. So it is our rhythm every other week to communicate, and we try as an internal district office to wait and put information into that dish before anything goes out. Adam is one of the main people who puts it all together and will tap different content areas or different departments like, hey, we haven't seen anything yet recently in this, so do you want to highlight something? So it's our way to consolidate information without bombarding our community. What I don't know is, because we've never surveyed people, do you love the dish? Do you want it less? Do you want it more? So this is our opportunity to find out. I knew I was receiving it, but I didn't know there was a strategy behind how often it goes out and what we are putting in there. So things that had changed, we switched it from monthly. It used to go out every month to every other week. And then I felt a need to put my mug on there, which helps me sincerely when I'm at buildings, I'm at morning drop-off or pickup, or I'm walking through the cafeteria. they know who I am, which helps a ton. It's not me trying to self-promote, it's me trying to be not the stranger when I'm at the schools, which is awesome. And I felt bad for our previous superintendent, who also was in the buildings a ton, but a parent came to me and said, I think it's great you're here. I never saw the previous superintendent. I'm like, you probably did. You just didn't know it was her. So there was intention behind putting my mug out there. And I think that's worked for the past year and a half. So I'm anticipating maybe a change in that because now people know who I am. And there's other people I want to highlight. But I just want you to know there's intention behind it. But what we don't know is it working? Is it valuable? Do people like it? So this is our time to add some feedback to that. We also added, because of this goal, a staff monthly update. So we had nothing as far as a rhythm to communicate to our staff internally on a regular basis. So you can imagine, without a thoughtful, purposeful plan and a collective time we're going to send them something, what would we do? When it's ready for HR, when it's ready for communications, we would just send an email and things would just get lost. Staff would be upset. They'd ask questions. I didn't see that. So we have been intentional about doing one monthly update for the staff. And we're not perfect about trying to consolidate all of our information, but I think we're really good. We're better than we were. So we try to wait and put everything into the staff monthly update. I don't put my mug on that one as often. I'll generally do an emoji, a fun one, so it's not them seeing me one more time and wanting to hit delete. But this one has, I think, been helpful for us to say, if you look in the December issue, if you look in the November issue, you can see that information went out. I will also say we've not surveyed the staff to say, is it working? Is the rhythm enough? Is it too much? What else would you like? I'll tell you the one we get the most comments on is a section pet updates. And where do you think we put the pet updates? At the very bottom, thinking that staff will read everything and then get to the pet updates. My guess is there's a quick scroll down to the bottom to see the pet updates. But we know that that one's getting a lot of attention because we hear people talk about it. So we're not taking that away, but how do we draw more attention to the sections we think are really important and valid? And is there a different way that we can connect with our staff, or a better way? This is just an email. We don't know if anyone's read it or connected to it. And it's our way to say, we've shared with you, we've told you, but it doesn't mean it's the best way to communicate. So I just wanted you guys to see it is an improvement. So there's a cadence to our communication, but I'm not saying it's the best thing ever, and we're open to feedback. I think this is probably what, if you're a parent, the community sees the most and probably spends the most time reading. All principals have been tasked with a communication. Most elementaries do it. I will say Friday. They're pretty good about getting it out on Friday. Or some will do it on the weekend or Monday morning. Middle schools do it twice a month. So there's a cadence to how often a principal is communicating out to their community. And I get all of them. Our board president gets all of them. So it's nice for us to also get a window into what's being communicated from the building to the community. And I do see a lot of personal touches in those. But they're all so different. So while we have a cadence to when it happens, there is no structure whatsoever currently to what's going out per building. So if you have kids in multiple schools, you already know that and you see that. And we've not given you any avenue to say, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What do you think we should do to enhance it and upgrade it? So I appreciate that you've not bombarded us with that, but we also would like to hear it so that we can make sure they're all getting the benefit, because we're putting a lot of time and energy into it. We want to make sure that the parents like what they're receiving. Something I didn't add on here, but I want to highlight it. Most schools now, the PTA also has a cadence to them communicating, and it is separate. It's different than this communication. So I'm curious, is that too much? Is there a way to combine in a healthy way? And as I'm looking at a couple of our students, I recognize we're not sending anything to them. So what I do want you to highlight is we do some type of morning announcements in most of our schools, but I'll be honest, I don't know specifically what is done at each building. So that is something I'm going to walk away from here now, wanting to collect some information on. So students, I'm curious, not in this moment, but I'm curious about what information you are getting and how often about your school itself, whether it's through morning announcements or the audio announcements over the intercom. Instagram, I am not a regular user of social media. If you are a social media person, you probably know that because you don't see me very active on there. I'm an active watcher, so I like to see what our district is posting, but I'm not an active contributor. So Instagram has been an avenue that we introduced. We had Facebook as a district. We introduced Instagram in order to put out more information about what's happening in our schools in order for the community to connect. What I find really interesting is I'm not trying to communicate with Australia. I'm not trying to communicate with Schaumburg. I'm only trying to communicate with District 25. So we've had some internal dialogue about things that will go viral, things that have, 10,000 views. Like, it doesn't get my energy up when we have 10,000 views because I don't know who's viewing it. So while I think it's fun and I think it allows us an avenue for the classroom to be given to parents and a larger community, I also get sensitive to how much are we putting out. And if you haven't seen our Instagram or our Facebook, I think Adam does a phenomenal job of really getting into District 25, specifically talking to kids, like what's their experience like, and highlighting kid experiences. And I'm pushing him more now into professional development we do with staff, like what is happening with staff. But there's a hesitation. We don't really promote that a lot, but I am pushing him into, I want to collect stories of what staff are going through as well. Right now, there's a lot of comfort with telling good student stories. We don't have as many of those with the staff, so that's something that we're pushing. But we internally debate, like, do we need social media? Do we not need social media? So to me, it feels like sometimes a threat, but it is an opportunity as well to highlight the good. So this is a good one to talk about, but the strategic plan was our push to introduce Instagram. And I recognize I'm getting older, and we have lots of new families coming up, so social media might be the platform that they use. So maybe the weekly emails aren't as beneficial, but I will be honest, we've not surveyed yet to say what avenue of information do you collect from District 25? What do you use as your sources? Developing partnerships is obviously a really big one we spend a lot of time on as District 25. Here's one we've done now for 10 years, the Dryden Place project. It's right behind or on the property of Windsor Elementary School near the Dryden Apartments. It's been a 10-year celebration of the garden, and now everyone in that area can walk by, see the beautiful garden, and you can actually buy a plot and with your family, and you can have a plot there. Windsor students will sometimes be brought over to engage in the garden activity. Hydroponic gardens have now been added to other elementary schools that don't have a community garden. But that has allowed us an opportunity to connect with Northwest Community Hospital did a grant, the Rotary did a grant. So it allowed us to bring partnerships together 10 years ago that have maintained, which has been a healthy opportunity to engage. Strengthened our community connections with the village by creating over 2,500 welcome bags. I don't know when you guys moved into the area, but if you move into the area now, the village gives you a welcome bag, and District 25 has put some information in there. So we want to welcome people to our district, whether they have children or not. We want them to know about us. So we had over 2,500 bags we helped make. So when the village says welcome to any people that are moving into the community, we're a part of that message as well. And then we have a webpage. Again, we have a lot of people that go to the webpage, but I don't know if they're our community members. They could be people from anywhere. So I don't get a lot of information about our webpage, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, but it is really useful for us to land places for parents to go for information and for our staff to get information. 5 essential data. I'd love to say all of you, parents, students, and staff, take the 5 essential. A lot of you do, but we don't have even 20% in every school as far as parents taking it. So we don't always get the parent results. You have to have 20% of the community take it in order to get the results. Only, I believe it's 4th grade through 8th grade students take it, and then only certified staff take the survey as well. What I will acknowledge we don't do a really good job of is highlighting the results of our 5 essential survey. So I'm sure when people get the emails in about March to take it, they're like, well, I didn't see the results from last year, so why would I do it this year? So this is some of the information from the 5 essential data. It's all publicly available online as well, but these opportunities remind me of how much we could be doing with the information that we aren't currently doing. So I appreciate the opportunity during a 5-year strategic plan refresh to be reminded you need to do more with the data we have. And these were just 3 more of the pieces of information. Literally, there's hundreds of data points within 5 essential, from students to staff to parents, and I'll acknowledge we can do a lot more with the information we have. The information is good, but we can do a lot more with sharing it with staff and our parent community, and frankly, the students who took it. I'm still here for questions, but I want to make sure I give enough time to Kendra to present as well. Checking time is 9:10, and we have until 9:30, so 20 minutes. How are we doing on time? Good. So 5 Essential is a state survey, so it's kind of like ACT, SAT. The state pays for one of those tests for high school students to take. They pay for the 5 Essential survey. The 5 Essential survey is the organization that says this is for certified staff. Now, any staff can take it, you just go in through a different link. But it's only given by name, by email, to our certified staff. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. The question is, if within a school system, so every school, you need 20% to take that survey from the parents in order to get the results. So the state is not taking that information into account unless you get 20%. So do we see like 4 schools didn't get 20%? Yeah, it's something we are looking at. Like, are we not marketing it well? Yeah, how are we trying to improve it? Because email reminders clearly don't work. Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Kendra Perry. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel. So what that means is I'm in charge of taking care of all of your teachers and your principals. I know, right? Good job. So I am going to talk a little bit about our high quality staff. And the goal that was created for this was created prior to my coming here, but luckily it was created by Dr. K as he was in this role prior. So all good things I was handed. Our goal currently is to attract, develop, and retain diverse, high-quality, innovative employees, improve policies, procedures, and hiring practices with our employees to enhance internal relationships, trust, respect, commitment, collaboration, communication, and satisfaction, and refine and extend data collection, analysis, progress monitoring, and reporting to promote continuous improvement at all levels of the system. So that's been my goal. Some celebrations. We've done, this is not my slide. So somehow my slide got goofed up, but that's okay. Some celebrations, if I have, Brian, if you can pull the journey document for me, that'll have it. I'm not sure how. These are Diane's slides, so you're going to see these later today. Maybe ours we're both yellow in the program, so I apologize. We'll get that fixed. So we have launched guest teachers, so our substitute teachers. The board worked with us really closely over the last 2 years to launch a tiered pay schedule for our guest teachers. So we're doing a really great job of having substitutes in the district. We're always across the state. There's a shortage of subs, but we are doing a really great job of filling our sub needs. And I think that has to do with the increased pay schedule that we've implemented. In addition, this last year, a huge celebration in our district is we increased our TA pay structure. Yes, right? Great. So we've just, this is a group of teachers who come in, teacher assistants, and they work with all of our teachers and our students and do some incredible tasks for our students. And we did an analysis and realized we weren't at the pay structure we needed to be, and then we also tiered that pay structure. So the services they provide become more intensive depending on the students they work with. We now acknowledge that and gave a pay increase based on what they're being asked to do. Thank you. It is. Yeah. We have streamlined our hiring and onboarding process, so we are now digital. We were finding a lot of the employees that we were hiring come from out of state. They're new grads. They're very proficient with this tool. And so we now have an onboarding process that doesn't require paper. They can do everything from their phones. And so it's been really innovative and helpful and has helped us more efficiently and quickly onboard our employees. And onboarding for the students in here means hiring our new teachers. And then maintaining highly qualified staff and expanded partnerships. We continue to have partnerships with the universities around. We're looking for diverse staff. We want our staff, our goal would be to have our staff match our student population in diversity. That takes a real outreach on our part, so we have a lot of partnerships with different organizations around the area. We attend job fairs at diverse universities. We work with our regional office, and we're really trying to diversify our teacher population to match our student population. Definitely an area for growth for us, and we'll show you that in one of our slides. So, all right. We talked about 5 essentials, Brian did. This is a second survey that we give, and this does go to our teacher assistants and all members of our school community, so custodians, facilities, food service, district office, everybody gets to take this survey. I'm not going to have you pull it out right now, but it is a very deep dive in your folder, and it looks like this. It's called the HumanX survey, and this document gives you every single question staff were asked, and it shows you a breakdown of how many responded from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So you can get a really close look at our culture. We give this every year, and we give it in the fall. This slide that I'm showing you is just an overview of that. This is their quick, they call it the 3x3, and it's really showing you satisfaction-wise is high. It means I want to do it here. And engagement is low to high, and that is I enjoy what I get to do. And so we're really proud of that number, and the company that runs this has said this is a really high number. It is down just a little bit this year, so in the box, in the red circle, you see where we are this year. We're at 75.75, highly satisfied, highly engaged staff. Last year we were at 80, and so that's where we start to dig in. And so each building, and here at District, we do a deep dive. Most of the times at the buildings, it's their leadership teams looking at that data. The principals have walked through this with our administrative cabinet, and we're looking at the specifics. We can see in the report, you'll see the top 4 or 5 high areas for every organization, and the top 4 or 5 low areas for improvement. So it's a data point that we really use and lean on, something I would encourage you guys as we're considering goals to take a closer look at. The next data point is just fun. I always show this to the board every year. It shows a long-term view of District 25's enrollment beginning in the 1950s. So I know you can't see those numbers at the bottom. That's why I have my cheat sheet in front of me. We started taking this data in the 1950s, and it continues through today. It helps us understand how the district has changed over time and provides context for our current and future planning. You can see that the enrollment grew steadily through the 60s and 70s, and it reached a peak of more than 9,500 students during the baby boom years. After that peak enrollment, it declined significantly for several decades, reaching a low point in the 80s. Did you know we hit our lowest in the 80s of under 3,500? Let's just take a guess. How many students do you think we have today? Anybody have a guess? Don't look with those good eyeballs of yours. Don't look. Okay, Brian K.
Somewhere over 5,000.
Yes, you're right. Just over 5,000. I'm going to show you on the next slide where we are. You can now see it, the numbers. We are currently this year at 5,108 students. We've been very consistent, which I think is important for us for financial planning. It helps us see that since 2020, as a closer look, we're staying very consistent at that number. That helps us use our buildings well. It helps us hire the right number of staff, helps us budget, all of those important things. So next trivia night, it's just over 5,000, okay? We don't have goals to grow our schools. We have goals to meet the students who are with us. So we work with the community to see where they're growing, where different building initiatives are taking place to make sure that we can then accommodate if a new apartment complex is coming up. We want to make sure we can accommodate that, first in physical form and then with staffing. Good question. Okay, so our projected, which we were just talking about, our projected, it's called a CASARDA report. We present this to the board every 2 to 5 years, depending what's happening in the district. And this shows where CASARDA projects us. So if you see in the green at the far end, in 2034, 2035, we're projected to be right under 5,500. So he shows a little bit of growth, but not super inconsistent, not like we have this massive boom and we're going to be back in the 9,000s. And so that does take in to account all of the district and community planning. So that's a really great question. I have lots of detailed CASARDA reports. We show them to the board with each of the older projections. They're usually spot on. The kindergarten edition of kindergarten definitely gave us a little interesting data, and we came in a little bit lower than they projected. So CASARDA projected high. We came in below that. Yeah. Yeah, so I would say that it's been favoring a little bit higher than our reality. Okay, wait, before I ask this, how many schools do we have in the district? Yes, you. Graham, you're so good. You're so close, so close. Anybody else? 9. We have 9 schools. How many of those are elementary? 7. Very good. All right, you guys are killing it. So these are our schools. This is this year's enrollment. You can see where we are in population, where our largest buildings are, where our lowest, smallest attendance areas are. Just something of interest to look at. Thomas is a little still towering over South a little bit. We made some adjustments last year. Yeah. We made some adjustments last year to start to note we can't keep their staffing on par with each other because Thomas is growing. They are down a little bit from last year, but not a lot. They're very full. So that's an interesting data point. Our teacher diversity, I want to just look at my notes so I can read you the numbers because I can't totally see them. Our student population is very diverse. We have 74% of our students who identify as white, and the remaining 26 identify as Asian, Hispanic, Black, Pacific Islander, or 2 or more races. Those are the state classifications. Our largest group is Asian at 14%, and with our Hispanic population close following at about 10%. In contrast, our teaching staff is 97% white, so this is definitely an area of focus for me. We have limited representation from different demographic groups. So as we spoke of earlier, this is obviously a focus for me and my department is to diversify our staff and celebrate the diversity of our students. Just to tell you a little bit about our teachers, this is certified staff. So these are our classroom teachers and staff who carry a licensed endorsement. So that's who we're talking about. We have a 93% retention rate, which is fantastic, which means our teachers don't leave our district. People who work in Arlington Heights want to be here, and they stay here. Usually they grew up here, they went to school here, their kids go here. Like, we have a very strong community of teachers. Their education, 71% of our teachers have a master's degree or higher. We do compensate them as they grow in their education. They can gain salary increases. Teacher evaluation, we have 100% of our teachers this year who are proficient and excellent, which means we had no one on an improvement plan. And teacher attendance, an area I think for growth for us, we're at 56%, which is not ideal in my world because we are in charge of our substitute teachers. And like I said, we are very well staffed, but not well staffed enough that that's not an impact on us. So something to think about in how we address teacher attendance. I could look at the state average. I didn't pull that data. It's on our school report card, but I can easily get you that. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Brian. So we're below, yeah. Okay. Salary. Oh, yep. Do we have a question? Okay, yep. Nope. Moving along. I just want to give you guys time. We're running quickly here. Just so you can see our average salary, the green line, like Brian said on the last chart, the dark green line is the state average. And the light green line above it is the district average. Our average teacher salary is $78,595. And in comparison to our feeder districts, so we have 5 additional feeder districts that go into District 214 high school. So these are those other districts. You can see we fall right in the middle of salary and compensation, or just a little below the average there for the feeder districts. Our student staff ratio is super important, something we talk a lot with our board and our teachers about. And our board has been very respectful and supportive of us trying to stay at some grade level targets, which I can tell you is not everywhere. I've worked in other districts where they don't have this kind of a goal. So this is super helpful to us, and I think it really does support our teachers well. At kindergarten, we try to keep classrooms around 20. In first and second grade, around 22. Third through fifth, 25, and then sixth through eighth, it can be 25 or above, depending on the type of class they're in and what's going on in that class. Our district's teacher to student ratio is 14 students to 1 teacher, and the state average is 17 to 1. This has a great impact on student growth. For those of you who are teachers in the room, you know that. Across, yep. No, the 14 takes into, that's a great clarification. The 14 takes into account all staff that work with those students. The 20 is the classroom only. Yep. I'm so glad you pointed that out. That would be amazing, but it's not what it is. Yeah. One-on-one teaching. So this is where we lie. The orange is District 25. Our student-to-teacher ratio is at the lowest end, which is really great for us. We're a little bit below the average. And those are our feeder districts. So those are the other elementary districts feeding 214. And I have those if you need those. Yeah. We try to stay closer to the median. It just depends on if we had a dip in enrollment, and we don't. If we had a dip in enrollment that was consistent, we would look at reducing staff. We have not had a dip in enrollment, as you saw with our enrollment chart. So when we know the optimal staffing, although this year maybe is a little bit lower than last year, which changes those numbers a little bit. If we were to see like that historical graph where it really dips, we would look at reducing staff, which is called a reduction in force, which we have not done here in a really long time. It's really hard on staff culture. So we take that into consideration very strongly before we would ever make that kind of decision. But we definitely, every year when we're staffing, we have a very intensive process that looks at every grade level, at every building, every teacher. We move everyone around to those numbers before we would ever hire. So we don't just keep 5 teachers at a building at a grade level. We move them to ensure we're staying at that. Yeah. That's it. Look at me. Thanks, Perry. I hit right on the nose.
So I do apologize that we didn't leave more time for you guys. This is like a middle school teacher. You get 6 opportunities throughout the day. The first class is like your test class. So I promise I'm going to leave the next 2 groups with more time. But I do apologize that there's not enough time for you guys. I did want to capitalize on the question that was just asked. The other factors that impact this student-to-teacher ratio would be teachers that don't have student assignments. So instructional coaches, we added. We have interventionists. So they're extra teachers, but they're not drawing from like the enrollment and like separating into smaller groups. But they do make it look like our ratios are much smaller because it's real. We've added more teachers, but they're not taking another class of kids to make the class enrollment smaller or class size smaller. So again, I apologize we didn't give you more time, but at least we finished on time. That's a plus. You guys are going to exit and go to the right all the way to the tech lab. I'd say bring your folder. If you want to bring your name card, feel free, but definitely bring your folder. Thank you, groups 1, 2, and 3, AKA class 1.
So welcome in. We're going to jump in. There is a lot of information in this presentation. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about are very high level, just for the fact of we have so much data and so much information. If we got nitty gritty into everything, we would be here probably till like Saturday. So this is a quick snapshot. We have 45 minutes together. And I should start and introduce myself. My name is Andrea Lusso. I'm the Director of Student Learning. Welcome. I'm going to be doing a portion regarding student achievement, and then my friend Diane is going to jump in afterwards.
Just so you know, we are recording this.
Yes, we are recording.
But so the mic is really up here by the computer, but it might take you guys out.
So, just letting you know. So we're going to get started with where we are currently. This is our current student achievement goal: to refine and extend instructional practices, programs, and services to ensure all learners are academically ready for high school and beyond. And within that goal are like little, I would say, mini goals to support that goal, and they are to refine and extend our continuum of services to better meet the needs of all students and close performance gaps for identified student subgroups, and then ensuring high student engagement and ownership of their learning through hands-on, authentic, and real-life learning opportunities, as well as innovative teaching practices. So I'm going to be giving you some snapshots of data coming up, but I always like to start with some celebrations and accomplishments that have taken place since 2020 when our strategic plan was implemented. We have now fully implemented kindergarten. This is year 2 of our full day program. That is a huge celebration, starting off strong with our kindergarten students. Currently, I would say a large amount of our staff is embracing a really targeted professional learning opportunity. We're calling it a micro-credential. It's through something called Letters, which is a very intense literacy training program to be able to support our students. We also have administrators taking that. I'm currently taking Letters training. It's pretty amazing. We have added a lot of support staff. So we have something called an advanced learning specialist that is now at every building. We have an instructional coach at every building to support our teachers. And we've added student services specialists to provide differentiated support that helps both students and teachers grow. And then we are, we've developed and are using a robust program review process that pairs not only our curriculum, but with professional learning together to make sure that we are supporting both our staff and our students. So this, again, is a snapshot. This was actually in our journey document that has been sent out that gives, again, quick snapshot of where we are performing, within our IAR, which is the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. It's given to all 3rd through 8th grade students. That's like our state test that we give. And then there's also additional information of the amount of students who are passing Algebra 1 when they leave us in 8th grade compared to the state of Illinois. And then just some other data that comes from 5 Essentials. I'm going to start digging in with the state testing that we give, both proficiency and then growth-wise. So we're going to be starting in the area of science. We give something called the Illinois Science Assessment to 5th and 8th grade students. We are currently performing at the 96th percentile compared to all the other science teachers, to other Illinois school districts within the state. So that is where our 5th and 8th grade students are performing. If we drill a little bit deeper, these are our feeder districts surrounding us and how we are performing compared to those feeder districts. I'll be showing you a graph that's not only for science, but for ELA and for math as well. And those surrounding 214 school districts are the same. Those districts include District 15, 21, 23, 26, 57, and 59. So really local down the street. We are outperforming. We do keep them anonymous because they are nice enough to share data with us. We are currently outperforming them as well as the state. If we switch to math, so this is, again, the state assessment that is given. This one is given to all 3rd through 8th grade students. And currently, we are in the 92nd percentile in math compared to all of our other Illinois school districts. So again, great celebration. We can always grow more. But compared to other schools in the state, that is where we are at. If we look at compared to our feeder districts, the trend continues. We are currently still outperforming all of our other feeder districts that feed into 214 regarding our proficiency on the IER in math, as well as the state. Then this chart is a little bit different. So this doesn't measure proficiency, this measures growth. So this is our IR math growth by student group, so our subgroups. At the bottom, you'll see different colors, blue, green, yellow, and red. Blue and green are, I would say, highlights and celebrations. Blue means that students are making higher than expected growth. And for our subgroups, we would like blue because that means that you are growing faster and more to help close those achievement gaps. So we've got some nice blue for our multilingual learners, for some of our different subgroups regarding ethnicity. So that's really exciting. We also have a lot of green, which is expected growth as well. We do not have any yellow, and we do not have any red. It's a big celebration. Yeah.
What's ELL?
ELL are multilingual students, so are students that are not completely proficient in English.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question.
Question about the effect size.
Yeah.
Is that does that correlate with Hattie's effect size, or is that a different effect size?
That's a different effect size. Good question. Okay. So now I'm going to switch to ELA.
What does it? Sorry,
yeah.
one more. What,
yeah.
When it's showing like expected or higher than expected, like where do they get the what's expected?
So
is that benchmarked off the country or like
yeah.
what is it?
So it's a variety of factors. So ECRA is I would say the company that helps us collect all this data. They actually have, I would say, a formula where they look at our data over time as well to determine what that higher than expected growth based on what we've done in the past, what the state is saying is proficient, and then I don't know the exact formula, but then they put it all together. We have a large sample size and we have used them for many years, so historically we have a lot of data to back up where students are performing at. Good question. Okay, so regarding English language arts, We are performing at the 88th percentile compared to other Illinois school districts. And if we look again, the trend continues. We outperform our local feeder districts going into 214 as well as the state.
Sorry, what's ELA?
English language arts.
Reading class.
Reading. So literacy.
Thank you.
Yep. No, thank you for asking
We
these
need
questions.
like a
Yes.
non-teacher appendix or something. Thank you.
And then I love all of the slides we are presenting, but this is a huge celebration. If you look at our growth in regards to ELA, there's a lot of blue within all of our groups. Huge highlights again are multilingual learners, our students with IEPs. So even if they aren't meeting proficiency or benchmark yet, we are heading in the right direction a lot quicker than expected.
So is that an indication that if this last year of data we were at 88 percentile, previous year we were below that, and we've now, this is showing that growth?
Possibly. I don't have that data on there, so I couldn't off the cuff right now tell you where we were at before. But yes, this is an indicator that we are, yes, growing faster and higher than we have in the past.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of what I was asking about the data, like what is higher than expected, because that doesn't mean we're outperforming the rest of the state. So like our ranking might not go up. Right. Like we could be just growing the same, we're just growing better than we have in the past.
Yes. And this is, even though it's using IAR data, this is our data. Like they're not pulling like the feeder districts to say if you have higher than expected growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not like it's basically like, are we growing more than we have
And so
historically almost?
And this implies then we're closing that
Yes,
gap
correct.
for those students.
Yep.
Which will then help our overall performance.
Correct.
But
yep.
no, but well, I don't know. If it's just us, it doesn't imply we would close the gap because it doesn't. The other schools, those other feeders of the state, could be growing more than that.
No, I know. What I'm saying for those students, we are starting to close the gap
within like our district.
Within our
yes.
district,
Yes,
which
yes.
then will help the future performance of our district because, like the following year, if we're closing the gap in 3rd grade and then in 4th grade they're being tested again, hopefully their performance will continue to grow.
Correct.
Which
And their proficiency then will go up.
Correct.
Yeah, would help our scores, but I don't think it implies we would close the gap with the state or.
I wasn't implying.
Yeah.
Great question. Okay. Then this graph, it's a very simple graph, but this is just showing the percent of our students when they go into 214 that are placing into honors or higher. So not only do we like to look at where all of our students are at now, but then how are we supporting them as they go to high school? Another data point that we have, it's a test called Access. This is given to all of our multilingual learners in our school district. There are different levels of students. Number 1, entering are students with very limited English proficiency. 5, bridging, means that according to this test, they are, I would say, well on their way to being proficient in English. The Illinois exit criteria is a 4.8 for you to technically exit out of being provided more targeted services. But something always to keep in mind is that if you're a multilingual learner, you're always a multilingual learner. So just because you exit out of the program doesn't mean that teachers aren't differentiating and supporting you as you move on through our district. Also something too to keep in mind with this, it's a quick snapshot, but we do have students that possibly could come into our district like in 5th grade with very limited English proficiency. So this is showing all of our students at all grade levels and where they're falling. Yes?
I work in a high school that has a large amount of students that are, qualified as multilingual.
Yeah.
And we have a Seal of Biliteracy program.
Okay.
Where eventually.
Oh yeah.
It's
okay.
used as a strength. And we
yeah.
start with, not many people can speak 2 languages like you what you're doing. And eventually it can actually lead to college credit and something that would really be something to, feather in their cap per se. So does the district inform parents or students of that possible track in the future in terms of like motivator? I'm fascinated by how well they're doing. Like our students, we have a very large population.
Yeah.
We're trying to, we have blended classrooms and inclusion, and we're doing multilingual ELA classes as well. But I've never seen that gap close so quickly. Like, what's the model that you're using that?
Yeah, great question. I would have to get back to you on some of those specific questions just to be able to speak to it better. So our coordinator of multilingual services would have a lot of detailed information on that. So that's something that if you were interested in, I could definitely connect you with her. She could talk to you all day about
whatever it is, keep doing it.
Okay.
But,
yeah, we are. We're seeing some great progress.
And I didn't know if like the seal of my literacy, if that's something that the high schools eventually or the middle school kids are informed of. That's something.
Great question.
I think we do, which is it's an awesome program.
And then just something to highlight, just some of the awesome and wonderful technology that we have available in our district. It's really put into 5 different buckets: access, innovation, differentiated support, digital citizenship, and just general support both for our teachers and our staff. We are very lucky. We are a 1-to-1 district. We have iPads and Chromebooks, which really gives our teachers a lot of flexibility in order to infuse technology throughout the day. And then my last slide includes all the different professional learning opportunities that we have for our staff, because we know if we support our teachers, that really helps with our student achievement and making sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our students. I talked a little bit about our foundational literacy micro-credential that we are currently in. We formalized our program review process for all content areas, looking over the course of multi-years of how we are implementing curriculum, supporting teachers, looking at data, refining practices. And we are really working on transforming that professional learning not to just be a one-stop shop. Infusing instructional coaches throughout every building to have that really targeted one-on-one support with teachers has been really important, really beneficial. Aligning our professional learning along with program review is something that we're always continuing to work on. So now, to make sure we have enough time, my friend Diane will be presenting about learning environment.
Thank you, Andrea. So, yeah.
I did have a question.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be part of this section coming up. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I know you have in the data, like, focus on IEP specifically, but are you guys tracking any data around kids with 504 plans and, like, their performance and how that is impacting, like, their growth in some specific way? Are there metrics somewhere on
We
that?
didn't include those metrics within this because it's not something that's included within the state report card, but it's something that we as the departments or at the building, we definitely look at that information, especially as a student with a 504 plan has an accommodation plan, not a special education IEP plan, but as that team meets annually to talk about that student, see what other supports they need, they definitely look at all of that student's data to say, are we meeting what that child needs, but do we have it district-wide? We do not as part of this presentation.
Yeah, I'm just curious more on like an aggregated level as you look at how 504 plans and that engagement is playing out, and then tied to actual performance, like classroom performance. I'd be curious to see that type of analysis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I'll mark that down in my notes.
I know, I'm taking notes.
There were some questions before. Yeah.
Off-topic question.
I know.
I know. That's why I apologize too. I'm monitoring. I'm like, oh,
I know. Which is, as I was standing here last time talking, I didn't keep on track last time. You're a mom, I'm doing great seconds.
I know.
Yes. So, thank you for that. I know. It's way off. Yeah. No, not at all. It said 3 p.m. a little bit ago. I don't know. Yeah. So, it's way off. So anyway, I am Diane Kafka. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services here in District 25. And I just wanted to start by saying, I know you're going to hear from many individual speakers today, but one of the reasons that I love District 25, I've been here over 20 years, is really that collaborative relationship that we have. Kind of as you heard Andrea speak, but Andrea and I and Becky and Kendra and Stacy, all of us work so closely together. So even though we're reporting on kind of our individual area, the fact like student IEPs, things like that and curriculum, 100% we work together on those kind of things. Staffing with Kendra, making sure we get that robust staff, making sure we're meeting all those needs. So even though we're kind of in our little silos today presenting, we work so closely together. As I said, I've been here over 20 years. I've been both an educator in our buildings, a building administrator, now a district level administrator, but I've also been a parent. And my child went through District 25 schools. I still live in the community, so I value each one of you and the information and your perspective that you can share. Also, I wanted to say my goal is the learning environment goal. Andrea had a lot of kind of quantitative data. It's a little harder to get that quantitative data for that learning environment. I do have some points that we're going to share, but I also gathered information about all about our districts and our policies, our procedures, our staffing to share information about that too. But the learning environment goal that's been in place for our strategic plan is to cultivate a healthy climate and culture that creates conditions and supports to meet the needs of all learners. There were a couple focus areas, and I'll kind of bring those in as I go through the slides of the data that we've collected. The data that I really focused on comes from a few different points. One is that Illinois State School Report Card, and that's one of these things, the summative designation that I'll talk about. We also use the 5 Essentials Survey, which is a survey that is taken by not only students, staff, and families. So getting some of that data point from that student perspective was really important for me on the data. We also have the Human X survey, which is taken by staff, some of that climate and culture. And also, as I shared, some of the data is just what is here in District 25. What systems have we put in place? Policies, procedures, staffing, curriculum that help support that goal. This one is really important. Like I said, it's from the Illinois School Report Card, and it gives our overall district's designation. It also lists out each school, and you can either be exemplary, commendable, targeted, comprehensive, or intensive. All 9 schools are either exemplary or commendable. Exemplary is the top 10% of schools performing in the state of Illinois. Commendable is that a school didn't quite hit that 10%, top 10%, but has no underperforming student groups, which again is really important from my lens of that learning environment. The measures that they use is looking at those student groups to make sure that we are meeting their needs, and that includes racial and ethnic identities, students with IEPs, English language learners, and students from low-income families. So really proud that we are all exemplary or commendable schools there. And I know I'm talking fast. I'm trying to make sure I hit all my time. So as part of that learning goal, like I said, we really focus on that sense of belonging of our students. So this is data that's from the 5 Essentials, and that 4th through 8th grade students take this survey during the school day, so they have time to focus on that. And the results show that 87% of our students share that peers treat each other with respect, either agree or strongly agree. And of those students, 94% of our students shared that they either agree or strongly agree that teachers treat me with respect. So that I thought was really an important data point, a quantitative point that we could add. But we know that that sense of belonging includes many factors, including the social emotional support that we can provide. And so that's a big focus of my role in this data that I'm sharing today. So I wanted to start with our general education curriculum related to social emotional supports, and that's our ruler curriculum. That was implemented during the current strategic plan. Ruler is a district-wide social emotional, or SEL, program that was developed by the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. The core philosophy is that emotional intelligence and social emotional skills be embedded throughout everyday life in the entire school community. As you can see, like that little mood meter poster, you will see that everywhere, even here at district offices, even when we're working with staff members. Like that is part of our culture now throughout the district. Ruler stands for 5 key emotional intelligence skills. The first is recognizing emotions in themselves and others, understanding the cause and consequences of those emotions, labeling their emotions with a big nuanced vocabulary that we try and teach them, that just happy could mean many different things. So let's focus on what that could be. Expressing the emotions appropriately in ways that fit our social norms, And then regulating or managing or modulating our emotions to make sure that we're not reacting impulsively. As I shared, the one data point I could give you that is that we have 100% implementation from our early childhood, from our 3-year-olds all the way up through 8th grade, have these lessons embedded as part of their education here. The lessons are beyond just a one point in time lessons. It's throughout the entire school environment. Every staff member is trained on Ruler. We include it as our new teacher orientation training that we do too. And every school, and like I said, every building is using these concepts to ensure that we have that embedded throughout. But we recognize that Ruler does not meet all needs. 100%. So the next level of the SEL support is the strengthening multidisciplinary team that we have expanded to help support our teachers and our students. And so for that data point, I just put in some numbers on how we've expanded our supports over this last strategic plan time. We've added social workers, psychologists, and even our board certified behavior analysis or BCBAs. We've continued to expand that support for our students and our teams. Some of the things that we've added are things like a more comprehensive student risk assessment, student threat assessment, and then really that MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support for our social workers to be providing support to our students. And then also we added a student support request form. This was added that any team member can reach out with this form to share a concern. Whether it is about social emotional, it also can be about academics, it can be about motor concerns, health concerns, whatever it is, we wanted a comprehensive one-stop place that any teacher could say, hey, I have a concern, what are we going to do about this? And then the problem-solving team at that building would review that information to say what steps are needed, what plans can we put in place, and it also helped us with documentation to be able to say, now we know there was a concern about the student, we put a plan in place, let's make sure that we continue to follow that support, and even now the data collection that we have can go from building to building. So if a student had a concern at Greenbrier, that would follow them to Thomas, so that team would have that history to be able to check in and say, what else do we need to do, or how else do we need to change that plan? Mm-hmm.
Do teachers use that form? I mean,
Yes.
I guess it sounds great. I would imagine that the way that it's being tracked afterwards, I would imagine that if it's pushed out the wrong way, some teachers would be afraid to be like, oh, I don't want now all this documentation on a student just because I had a concern about what was happening today. I'm curious of.
So there's, yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different things that teachers can do. Like if there's a one point in time concern about a student, yeah, they have a little like a think it through sheet or something that they can do with that student. This is for more like, I want that team support. I want a little wraparound discussion. And it can be positive things too. We're also using that form for if a team member is like, I really think that student could benefit from some advanced support, some, beyond what I can do. So it's yes, it is used
Can I just
a lot.
as a classroom teacher,
Yes.
like the streamline of this request form has actually made the educational classroom a lot more beneficial because we are able to have meetings with the specific teams, the people that we need to. So it's actually made it a lot easier for student support and teacher support and documentation.
Okay.
So I personally, I can't speak to anyone else, but I've been in the district more than 2 decades. I won't even tell you how long, but I can tell you that we've been through a lot of different things, and it has really helped streamline what we need to do and makes it much more flexible, I feel like, for us then to make sure that we're meeting the kids.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal
I mean, it sounds great. I'm
and
curious about the
teachers,
adoption, like, do
fill
people
it out.
use it?
It's accessible, like, it's easy for us to access, and it's easy for then meetings to be scheduled and have those little check-ins when needed with other people. It's actually quite helpful.
Is it only teachers that fill it out, or do students have access to it where they can?
Not students, but any team member. So it wouldn't just be a teacher, it could be the occupational therapist, it could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are parents notified?
Depending on what happens from that. So it could be like, for example, if you wanted a screening of a student, maybe their fine motor skills or their speech and language skills, and the team got together and said, yes, we all have these concerns, let's move forward with that, then they would notify the parents to say, hey, we are going to take these next steps. Sometimes it's just a teacher saying,
asking for like, can you come in, I need some ideas from new movement breaks for the
yes,
classroom.
yes.
But also too, on the form, it does ask if parents have been notified.
Mhm.
So like, it actually is extremely comprehensive. I mean, I cannot tell you enough. I swear I'm not going to get it.
slip or something,
like,
yeah.
No, I swear, I mean, it has taken a long time to get to this point. Like, we've been through many drafts of different options. And this literally, like, when we fill it out, it goes out to the specific people that we chat. It's like amazing. I don't know what magic would happen.
And then it's all documented so that like it's really helpful just so that the next year, if they see trends within the classrooms or the grade level or whatever, like they just have it all in one place. We're really off task, but
I don't
really
think
love
that
it
the
too.
parent would, but like that would be a good thing to have from a parent perspective. Like if I could do the same thing versus trying to email people and like try to coordinate something when I have a concern. Like I don't know if that exists, but I haven't seen it.
And I think typically they want you to start with a classroom teacher because typically if you have concerns, it's a great way to have a good conversation. But then the first thing that we will do probably is fill out this form. So like know that then you're getting both perspectives, not just yours, but also the person who's seeing them at school because kids are very different at home. I can say that for my own kids. Like when they tell me what my kid does at school, I'm like, really? Does that happen? Like, oh, interesting. You know, it's two lenses. So I think that's probably why is my assumption as a classroom teacher, like they always want you to come to us first and then we go from there. But like, it's a great piece of feedback. Sorry, we're way off task.
Sorry.
We have 11 minutes because you deserve your break at 10:15.
Yes, but again, that social emotional support.
For the little kids, sorry, didn't you? But for the students in the classroom, I was just wondering if like, would you ever want to be able to have a forum where like it's on, like, would it be something where, you know, you're nervous about talking to a teacher about something and you can like submit like a, hey, I want to check in.
So we do have things like that students have access to, not a form like that, because we would, again, want them to go to their teacher with these concerns, or to their social worker, or whoever that person is.
With students that struggle with like language and, you know, things that, you know, verbally actually approaching teachers like that. I'm just wondering if there would be a different modality for students to be able to reach out for help like that.
Sure. And that could get into our next phase of, like I said, we focused a lot during this time on getting these supports in place, getting this working, and I thank you for that.
Sorry,
I know.
I wasn't trying to take over, but I really
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, good. And I was an educator in the district, and I think that's what helps me be, I'm not going to say I'm good at my job, but I think that's what helped, is because I've been in those shoes and know kind of what we needed to do. What supports would we need? How do we share this information? Get some things streamlined, and the form that we use is consistent across all the buildings. The information only goes to that one team, but if a team member switches buildings, they don't have to learn a whole new system. It's the same system, which has been really beneficial. So there's been a lot of celebrations, a lot of supports that we've added under social emotional, and this is a big part of our learning environment goal, as you can imagine. I do have some other slides, and how much time do I have left?
You now have.
Okay, now I'm going to talk faster. It's okay.
9 minutes.
This is
9 minutes.
huge. This is the biggest part of our learning environment goal. But there are a few other things that I wanted to share. So even though we have extensive supports in place, the goal of those is to avoid maybe some of these things, but I'm still going to share the data on these things and still let you know of where we are. We definitely have a district board of education policies regarding behavioral expectations. It's included in the parent-student handbook. And so some of these behaviors may result in disciplinary actions. We try, like I said, we try and get all those social and emotional support so we don't get to this point, but it does happen. There could be some significant behaviors that disrupt the learning environment or safety concerns that may result in an in-school suspension, that's this line, or an out-of-school suspension. So this is part of the state report card. The total incidents that we had last school year were 81. 61 were in school, which we prefer, versus the 20 that were out of school.
Is that increasing or decreasing?
I know I should have included a slide like that, and I did not. And off the top of my head, I don't want to misspeak on that. But someone at the last group asked the same thing, and I really think it is decreasing, but I don't want to misspeak and say something different. So I'll definitely get that data point. But as you can see, like the other group did ask, like what are some things that would result in that out-of-school suspension? Those would be things like if there was a weapon at school or something significant that would disrupt the safety of our classrooms. We really want to make sure we have that place. Anytime there is an out-of-school suspension, Dr. K is aware of it, I am aware of it, and we usually work with the principals to get like a safety and teaching plan, a reintegration plan in place to make sure that we have those supports that student needs. We're typically using those when we need a moment, a stop for a moment to say, what else do we need to make sure the student is safe, this class is safe, our buildings are safe. With an in-school suspension, a student would still be in the building. It could be a half day, it could be a full day. They still get their educational supports during that time, but they're usually secluded, restricted from their specials or different activities. And then they're also using that time to do more restorative practices. Really think about what you did. How do we fix a situation? How do we apologize? Or how do we create something to teach others? So as I'm speaking a little bit about that, you can kind of guess that would be a goal that I want to continue to decrease those numbers and increase our restorative practices is really what I would like to see.
Is there a benchmark for those too? Maybe if you're pulling the, okay.
Yeah, nope. There is information about bullying investigations, and this is a one point in time data point because last year is when the Illinois State Board of Education started collecting bullying investigation information. Not only is it the total number, but it also relates to many differentiated factors within that, including if it was a founded bullying investigation or unfounded. So we're still gathering. I don't have trend lines on this. I don't have a lot because this was the first year that we had to report that. In addition, with the bullying investigations, there was a lot of training that was required. So our social workers, our principals all got a lot of that last year to make sure that we're following everything that we need to. So we'll have some different trend lines as we move into this more. But a big part of the bullying thing, which has always been part of District 25, but in the past was more of those prevention things. Like in the past, it would be this social worker working with that grade level or that student, or what social story can we do? And so part of my role was helping direct the social workers and our teams to look at it as more of a global approach of prevention. So can we get some different lessons in place that would target early childhood, primary, intermediate, middle school, so that we have kind of like a bank of supports, whether it's commercially available or things that our team has created to help continue to prevent that. Much rather prevent these things by getting our supports in place. So you can kind of guess goal area if you want to think about it. Because I'm on the same page with that one. Yes.
Is there a standardized district-wide process to determine whether a report is founded or unfounded?
Yes, there is, and that's the principals have access to that as they're going through that investigation to be able to say what are the factors. Some of those are from the state, but not every single one of them. Some of them were us kind of developing that together as a group to say here's the factors that we're looking at. I even help them with developing like some of the questions that they should be asking, targeted answers that would trigger, okay, what's the next question we want to ask? What else are we investigating in that? So that is similar to how our student support forum was. I did the same thing with our bullying to help the principals have that consistency so that we're all kind of looking at it the same way. But again, I don't want to put too much emphasis on this because this was the first year that we were required to collect this information, and we kind of had to do some of that inter-rater reliability, kind of like, let's make sure we're all on the same page. So we'll see moving forward how that continues.
Knowing that a lot of bullying that takes place is like, you know, social media, like virtual, like in and
Cyber.
outside of the classroom. Is this all like in buildings, or does this like include some of like?
So the state does require us to consider cyberbullying. So that is one of the points that the building admin would be considering when they're going through this, to be able to say. And as we know, social media, that gets a little sticky of how do we say this is just pure teasing, pure interactions versus truly targeted bullying towards a student. So that gets a little gray, but it is considered cyberbullying. It is one of the points that we do need to collect data on and consider too.
Yeah, I was just curious if like the incidents, like the investigations, if those were.
Yep,
like,
that is part of it.
Included.
Yep,
okay.
absolutely.
Are there behavior
Yeah.
specialists involved too with that?
Pardon?
Sorry.
That's okay. Go
The behavior specialists, I saw you have 4 for, like, do they get involved in terms of like if there's like I know this is brand spanking new, so like maybe down the road.
Yeah,
like
so
like, an intervention plan, something for a student that is a repeat offender in terms of like.
Correct. So based on the outcome of that, and part of the a letter that a parent would receive would include what is the plan, what are the steps that are going forward, whether it was founded or unfounded, how are we helping support that student, that class, What are we going to put in place, and when is our next checkpoint on that? So it could be to start that no, a BCBA might not be involved. It could be just like we're doing a check-in with the teacher, we're maybe adding a little social work check-in, something like that. But if these things, so this data would help us say, if this is repeated, what are we going to do about that? Like, what is our next step to say, okay, now we're going to look at what other supports need to be in place, whether it's MTSS social work supports, whether it's a 504 or IEP, what other supports are needed based on the outcome. So for us collecting this data, both of these, more importantly, I feel, is the student support form, because that gets us, before we get to this level, of preventing some of these things. And I'm probably out of time,
Yeah,
right?
you're
Oh my
almost.
gosh.
2 minutes.
I'll talk fast. This one. So that was really important. That's our social emotional. This is more of the physical safety of our buildings. What else are we doing? And this again falls under that learning environment. So something we implemented this year or adopted this year is that standard response protocol to make sure that we have the same response for all students, early childhood through 8th grade, all staff, all schools. It's tied in with our Arlington Heights Police Department. Everyone has the same response. So we're consistent in keeping our schools safe. Another thing that falls under kind of student safety is our health services. We have updated so many of those management type plans, whether it's our medication, cardiac response, allergy response, concussion plans, all those registration forms, health histories, to make sure we have all that information that we need, all the supports that we need. And then we also created this Safe 25 website. We created that, I believe it was last year, to have a one-stop shop that parents can access to have information, whether it's related to these things, but also anything related to, like, if the village passes something about bicycles or scooters or different things like that, trying to have a one-stop shop for parents to have access to that information. I think I had a couple more slides. I'm going to try really fast. Oh, this is near and dear to my heart, so I am going to say it, and I see people out in the hallway. Family supports. That's a big part of my job too, is to ensure that we have the family supports to help avoid some of these things on the right-hand side, the homelessness and the chronic absenteeism. You would be surprised that we do here in the village of Arlington Heights have many families who are experiencing homelessness, and that's part of my job, is to make sure that we get the supports in place for them. And again, part of my thing is getting them before it happens. So thank you. The community supports is something that I've expanded our relationships with all the area support people in place, like for housing, for food, for medical, for mental health. I have personally trained everyone in district, came out to their buildings, did training on these things, now made a little video that they get when they're new employees about how do we avoid or how do we decrease this homelessness, which we have. So we're at 0.2%. Compared to the state at 0.27 or 2.7, which is great. Also decreasing our chronic absenteeism, and we created a parent academy on the website so that we could just find a quick place to share. Here's some upcoming trainings that are out there. Here's some information that's out there. Any place that we wanted, I have a landing spot for that too. And I think I had one more. Oh, I had two more. The equity journey. This is on the state report card too. A big part of mine is the learning conditions, that learning environment, as it relates to the student needs. Are we meeting their needs? And as you can see, we just have very small gaps on saying these different unique needs. Do our programmings and support meet them? So we have a little work to do there, but we're doing pretty good on that. And then I did throw one in for IEPs because that is my passion. And so this is the part of the state report card too. Proud of these numbers. We went through an audit with NSSEO and got high praise on our IEPs, how we write them, how we implement our continuum of services. These blue graphs showing most of our students are 80% of the time in gen ed, a little pull-out support there, 40%, and then therapeutic day, same with the state. A little lower than average of the state for students with IEPs, which speaks highly to our MTSS program. Thank you, Amy, back there. It's a wonderful program, getting a lot of supports in place for students before they get to the level of needing that. Yes.
What's an IEP?
An IEP, good question.
Good question.
An IEP is an individualized education plan. So for a student who can't learn the same way or do things the same way with the gen ed curriculum, they need some special education support. So we develop an individualized education plan to say, how are we going to help that student, whether it's reading or speech therapy or occupational therapy to make those gains and close that gap so they can get back into the classroom all the time. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
I talked a lot.
No, it's all okay.
It was good. Thank you guys. There was a lot of engagement.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
You have a break till 10:30. Go, go, go.
And then we'll do one more.
Yeah.
My name is Stacy Malik. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Business here in the district, and with me is Ryan Schultz, our Director of Facilities, and we are going to talk today about the stewardship of resources goals and where we are with our finances. Here we have the current goals and the current strategies that we're coming off of and trying to refresh for this new strategic plan, both address time, space, and aging facilities, and then explore new financial strategies to continue to be able to offer equitable programs to all of our students. What we've done in terms of this last strategic plan, we passed the $75 million referendum to both expand our schools to be able to offer full-day kindergarten, as well as to fund 5 years worth of our capital project plan through next summer. We invested over $1.6 million in new furniture throughout the district based on standardizing our furniture systems and surveying our staff in terms of what they need and building that program. We continue to look for new resources, grants through the state, through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, as well as other grants. They're small, but any dollars we can get in to help us support our programs and our needs. We continue to research. And then maintaining strong financial stability with a fund balance over 60%, AAA bond rating, and continuing to transfer money out of operations into capital projects for future capital needs. When we talk about financial health, there is a few things we like to look at. In terms of fund balance, the chart on the screen shows that the dotted line represents 60%, the solid line represents 40%, and shows that we maintained the board has a goal of staying having 40 to 60% in fund balance or reserves, money in the bank, that can cover 40 to 60% of next year's expenditures before we would run out of cash. The chart shows that we've been above or at that 60% level both in the past and expect to be up through the end of this year. And the one anomaly there in the middle of the chart is the year we sold the bonds and we got the money in near the end of the school year and then we paid it out in the following year. So it looks like we had it in the bank, but that's what it was for. We do maintain a AAA bond rating. We are one of 91 districts in the entire country that has the AAA bond rating. That's because when we project out our finances, we have contingencies built into that to anticipate if there are things going on at the state level, like when the pension shift was on the agenda at the state level, we anticipated that in our projections and what impact it might be. We have contingency money in that projection so that, should something come up, we have money built in that could help offset those costs before it would really affect our financial position, and the bond rating agencies really appreciate that. We use the state of Illinois' financial profile score. We have been in the recognition status. It's the highest category for the last 5 years, and I think actually since implementation of that scoring system at the state. That is how the state monitors school districts' financial health so that they can predict if a school district is headed towards financial difficulty before they would have to actually step in and take over a district, which happened a lot 15 years ago. They put this in place to make sure they can monitor and try to prevent that from happening and step in a little earlier. And then I mentioned already about the AAA bond rating. So just a little bit of background as to why the board has set that 40 to 60% fund balance goal level. Property taxes are our largest source of revenue, and we get those paid basically in 2 installments. It's like getting 2 paychecks a year, one in March and April, and one usually August and September. And that paycheck has to cover all our bills until we get that next paycheck in the spring. So if we were to if tax bills were due August 1st, we'd have 1 month of expenses to cover out of what we have in the bank. But like this year, tax bills are due December 15th. We have another set of bills going out on December 16th. We have a payroll on December 15th. We've had payrolls since July 1. So the money that's sitting in the bank, and we measure it as of June 30th, that's our fund balance. The money from June 30th that sits in the bank has been paying our bills since that time and will until we start seeing those tax dollars come in. So that's why we look at setting that goal, because you can see if we're paying bills into December, we need to be able to cover 50% of our expenses on what we have banked before we start getting that next collection. Also, in terms of the district's financial health, EBF is the new state funding formula, evidence-based funding it's called. The state basically determines, sorry, I'm losing my voice, the formula calculates what they believe are the adequate amount of resources every school district in the state needs based on your enrollment and your student demographics, whether it's low-income students or special education students, multilingual. Those are all pieces that go into this formula to determine here's an adequate level of resources for your district to provide what we say is the education that we want across the state. And that's the blue bars here. And then the orange bars represent here's your local resources that you provide or you raise or you have that can afford to help you meet that adequate level of resources. So you can see that we are a district that has a high level of financial resources helping us meet what the state says is the adequate level. We are above 90% adequacy every year, which puts us in the state's category of Tier 1. There's 4 tiers at the state level. Tier 4 districts are districts that have very little local revenue and therefore need a lot of funds from the state to help meet this level of adequate education. Tier 1 districts are districts that don't need that state level of resources to the same extent, and therefore we get, at the time the formula was implemented, we were getting about $5 million of state funds. That's the amount we're guaranteed to get from the state at this point since the time the formula went into play. Any additional money that goes into the state formula then goes to the Tier 4 and the Tier 3 districts. The state's trying to put $350 million every year additional into the state formula. As a Tier 1 district, we don't get much of that at all. We get like 0.01%. So we're getting like an extra $130,000 out of that $350 million because that money's going to school districts that have very little local property wealth. In terms of financial recognition, we go above and beyond in the district to prepare our financial audited data in a format required at a national level, and we send it in for review to meet a certain criteria, you get this award of financial recognition that your data is presenting all that needs to be presented to be the most transparent financial reporting determined nationally, and we've done that now for 32 years. That's been a high priority of the goal to make the board to make sure that we continue to put out all that information for our community. The state recognition profile that I mentioned, here's the factors that go into that calculation, the number of things they look at. One of the things is days cash on hand, or I talked about that fund balance percent. So in terms of this, we have over 180 days of cash on hand. That gets us through half the year before we might run out of cash. So those are all things that help the state say this is a very strong financial district. Where we score less than a 4 on is our percent of long-term debt remaining, and that's mainly because we just sold $75 million in bonds, so we have a lot of debt outstanding, and as we pay that down, that'll change that score at that level, but it still puts us in the strongest financial category as far as the state is concerned. So in terms of our financial, where we're at and where we project to be, that's kind of what this chart, trying to avoid some numbers and just give you a pictorial about where we are. The red and the blue lines represent revenues and expenditures. These are just our main operating funds. These are all funds, which include debt service and our construction funds, which we don't have access to those dollars, so we don't necessarily consider them operations, but we track them separately. In either case, though, you can see that while there are some gaps over time, and you can see we're coming off of larger gaps, which partially is due to the bond money coming in one year and paying out over the future, but the goal is to keep those two lines flowing and matched, so that we're not overspending the revenues we have in. Ideally, it'd be great to take in more revenue than we're spending, but certainly there are more needs that we can't meet, so there's always the needs to be addressed if we have the revenue to do so. The purple line is a 60% fund balance, the orange line is a 40%. The green is our actual fund balance, so you can see that in the future we plan to stay within that 40 to 60% range. As I mentioned earlier, that green bar, when I project out, it does include contingency funds because I need that to plan for the future, but there's over $500,000 a year built into this projection that if we need it, it's there. We don't typically spend that full amount, so I wouldn't anticipate that we would be down here. I would anticipate that we're not going to spend most of that $2.5 million over 5 years. But again, it's there and financially if we need it. What that allows is when things might happen, I'll say to us, when it's decisions made at the state level or the federal level when it comes to resources, it doesn't mean we wouldn't have to address those issues. It just means we don't have to address them today. So if the state were to say, we're not providing any state money anymore, you cut $5 million. We don't have to cut $5 million for next year, but we definitely have to cut it within the next 5 years, if that makes sense. So it just gives us time to make better decisions, strategic decisions by being financially responsible. And again, the reason that this line isn't, the fund balance here isn't as low as in the operating funds, that's because we are taking some of the operating money every year and putting it into the capital funds, which are included here, so that we are setting aside those dollars for future capital projects.
And looking at the forecast for the operating funds, I see it's continuing both expenditures and revenues to trend up. Is that based on general market growth, or are there already large capital projects having been approved and included in the future operations?
So this doesn't include any capital projects in the operating. So this is just trending. We anticipate our largest revenue, which I'll talk about in a minute, is limited. It's property taxes. It's limited to growth at CPI or 5%. That averages 2.4 to 2.6%. And our goal is to tie our overall expenses to that. So that's what you see there.
So
is that
it
growth.
is that general market growth.
It's general market growth. If we have contracts, like a bus contract that I know that increased for 2 years, I build that in. So if there's a known increase, I build it in. Otherwise, it's anticipated inflationary increases.
Thank you.
Can you go back 1 second? So one of, I will say the number one goal that the board historically has had is with our expenditures and revenues is low class size. They want to maintain class sizes and not use increased class sizes to provide. That's something that's been important to the community and it's been important to the board. So that is where we first focus our dollars every year when we budget. What this does show you, because revenues and expenses are tied, is that we don't have the ability, to stay financially strong, we don't have the ability to just keep adding, or if we're going to add, we need to find how we're gonna pay for that and reallocate funds to do different types of things. As I mentioned, property taxes represent the largest portion of our revenue budget, 84%. We receive 3% from the federal government, number one being IDEA funds, which are special ed funds. That's about 1.7 million. Then we get National School Lunch Program funds, about $500,000. And then we get title funds, which are maybe 200,000. We hear on the news, and we anticipate probably next year that some of those dollars will be reduced or completely taken away. Title first. Title money gets the most recognition at the federal level right now. There's also talk about the free and reduced school lunch program dollars being affected. So certainly we are watchful of those things and would anticipate that we would make some changes should those come through. At the state level, we get about 6% of our money. Most of that is transportation reimbursement for both bus transportation and special education reimbursement transportation, as well as some private facility. If we have a student outplaced, there is some state in a private facility where they live there and go to school there. There's some reimbursement for that as well. Other local resources are not significant portions of the budget, but interest income and food service revenues are all other local dollars. In terms of our expenditures, we know we're in good financial standing, and across the state, typically 80% of a school budget goes towards personnel. That's what we service kids through the use of personnel. In our budget, 67% is personnel, but that's skewed because we have the debt payment right now, and we include, in this picture, we include the capital spend. If you take those two kind of different pieces out, then we're at close to 80% of our budget is personnel, which matches across the state. The next biggest spends are purchase services and supplies. While those are things like used by students in the classroom, paint, pencils, art paper, it's also things like gas, electric, utility, those utility bills. It's our property and liability insurance, our workers' comp insurance, our audit costs. There's a lot of things built in there that we have to have. It's not real flexible. So when you look at the things that are more flexible, it's not all in this portion of the bill. It's our budget. It's really ultimately if the district were in a position to make significant financial adjustments, it would be in the personnel side of things. Special ed tuition, because it was asked in the last session, that's for students who are not able to meet their needs in the district, so they might attend classes, or they might have their schooling through NSSEO or through a private therapeutic day school, and we pay tuition then for those students to participate in those programs. So as I mentioned, I think I mentioned earlier, while our revenues, our taxes are limited to an increase of inflation, which is 2.4 to 2.6% as a 10-year average since inception, our expenditures don't necessarily have those same limits on that. Our gas bill and our electric bill are going up similar to homeowners. Our liability insurance, our workers' comp insurance depends on our claims and depends on the state rates for all claims. So those could be going up, lately 20%, so then we have to find other ways to make adjustments to meet those needs. And then, as mentioned in the first session, we do for perspective reasons, want to look at where we are versus where, in our case, the other feeders are, the districts that feed into District 214. So on a per pupil basis, our per pupil expenditures are around 17,000, and this is from fiscal year 24, which is the latest data available. And if you look at all the feeders into District 214, here's the average. We're under the average. We're, like I said, 17,000. The average is closer to 19. There are some districts that definitely spend more per pupil, and a district that spends less. We believe we're cost effective and use our resources wisely, as while we have a lower cost per pupil than other districts, we're arguably, I'd say, higher achieving than most if not all of those districts as well. I mentioned that property taxes are the largest source of revenue we have, and so I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like. 84% of our property taxes, our tax base, is residential, homeowners, condos, apartment complexes. Just over 15% is commercial, industrial property. Our tax bill, when we issue a tax bill, it's a dollar amount. You know, it's $80 million. Who pays that $80 million is based on this information right here. And then not only is it based on this, but it's based on what your individual or a taxpayer's individual property is worth out of the whole pie. Go to the next slide. So over the last 2 years, there's been a shift. 2 years ago, residential properties were 81% of our tax base, and commercial industrial was 18%. 2 years later, last year, commercial industrial is 15%, residential is 84.5%, 85%. What that means is, even if District 25 got no additional tax money, residential properties bills would go up 3.2% because they're paying that much more of the pie. The pie is the 80 million. The question of who pays it is based on that EAV piece. So a misconception is, you know, we levy a tax rate. We levy a dollar amount. The tax rate is calculated based on how the property values. So it's the property values that really also determine the individual impact on a taxpayer. So as the shift in taxes, you know, we know we all pay property taxes. We all know it's a heavy burden, and as it continues to shift more towards homeowners, I don't think it's going to be any less of a burden. But the opposite side of that, and one that, as a finance person for a school district, I'm a little positive about, is at least those dollars that you pay go right back here. You know that amount on your tax bill is coming to District 25, versus if we made a shift, as we've seen with the state funding formula, if somehow all that money went to the state and then it was allocated back out, then there's no guarantee over all the money that's coming from District 25 coming back to District 25. So in and of itself, the whole model is could use some looking at, but I'd be cautious to want to put more money at the state level. And just in terms of how does that work then, so as I said, we levy a dollar amount. So what happens is, as the total properties in the district go up, so the blue bar, as it goes up year to year, our tax rate, our cap tax rate, the limited bar, goes down. So that's how the formula makes sure we don't get more money than what the formula allows us to. So you can see up and down over time that those two flow opposite of each other. I show both our tax cap rate and our total rate because the total rate includes our bonds, the taxes that are associated with our bonds. And while the two should flow in parallel to each other. You can see in 2022, that's where that gap happened because that's when we sold the bonds. But I like to show both so that people usually want to measure this one, but there's two pieces to it. Yeah. Again, just looking at tax rates compared to the other districts in the area. There's three pieces to taxes in the county. There's the tax capped rate, there's a limited rate, there's your bonds rate, and then there's what's called a recapture levy. So the blue bar represents the cap funds, so you can see, and these are the rates. You can see we have, out of all the feeder districts in 214, we have the lowest capped tax rate of all feeder districts, except the one with the largest tax base, or second to largest tax base in the nation. But because we did have pass a referendum and sell a large portion of bonds, we do have a larger chunk of bonds, which puts us then, but still in the middle of all of our feeder districts. But what you don't see here for us, that you do see through the other districts, is this little yellow bar. That's this recapture rate. And what that means is a couple years ago, the state passed legislation that requires the county to add to tax bills the amount to let the district recapture tax refunds that were issued in the last 12 months, whether to homeowners or commercial properties. Because when a taxpayer gets a refund in property tax for a reduced property value, it's usually 2-3 years later. So they've paid their tax bill, it was split one way, then they got their refund, comes out of our current dollars. We had their property tax value been assessed right in the first place, then we would have got all that money and not refunded any, but because it happens in the future, we have to refund it. So that annually comes out of our current, and all school districts had no way to get those dollars back. So they passed a law that then allowed, that actually made it automatic, that those dollars get added back on an annual basis, unless a school board takes action to abate, what's called abate, or not ask for those dollars. So because we are financially strong, and because the board recognizes the burden of taxes, as well as the fact that the community supported a $75 million referendum, we have abated that recapture levy for the last 3 years, which is why you don't see it here. So we've abated over $1.8 million in terms of that amount. Yep. And then just one other kind of perspective piece here in terms of on a per pupil basis. If we look whether it's property value per pupil, we kind of fall in the middle. We have just under $450 million of property value per student. Or in terms of taxes, we get just under $16,000 a year per student in taxes across the board. So if you think about our per pupil cost is $17,000, then just under $16,000 of that is supported by taxpayers. And then just a couple of other kind of perspective pieces. With the delay in the tax bills, so typically they're due August 1st, and if our property tax levy is $80 million, we get $40 million in the spring, we get $40 million in the fall. If we had $40 million in August that we could have invested through these last few months, we project we would have earned over $560,000 of interest. So that's lost income to the district because we don't have those property tax dollars until another week or so. And they don't all come at once, it's as people pay them. In addition, the county is talking about delaying the second installment or the spring bills by a month because these were so late. So that we project about $141,000. So in total, $700,000 of interest income that I would project we would have earned this year, we're not going to get. Outside of no fault of our own. So these are just some of the things that, again, an example of something that could happen that impacts the district. In terms of the tax refunds I was talking about, they've averaged about $386,000 a year for the last 4 years. Some years it was in the 600,000, other years it was lower. So that's an average. Last year, 2.3 million in tax refunds. And that is something that every district in Cook County saw. We don't know why or how, but we all saw significant increases in tax refunds. Again, going whether it's to homeowners or commercial industrial, we don't know. But those are refunds that come out of current year dollars, money that we wouldn't anticipate. I anticipate we might lose $600,000 a year in tax refunds in that budget projection you saw, but I never anticipated 2.3 million. On a state funding level, while we're at this point guaranteed that $5 million from the state, there are a couple other reimbursement amounts that we get. Transportation reimbursement, both for busing and special ed transportation, and then if we have students placed in private facilities, then there's reimbursement for that. Those are currently being prorated as well. I think transportation's at down to 60% because as the state faces financial issues, and we know that the state was facing some financial issues, and then COVID hit and they got a lot of money from the federal government, and that money is dwindling and gone or going to be gone. We had spent all ours in the 3 to 4 years that it was allocated. You could get it extended, the state did, but as they don't have that financial resource anymore, we do anticipate they will be looking at ways to adjust their costs. So that's also something that stays on our radar. And I will turn it over to Ryan.
Right. Again, I'm Ryan Schultz. I'm the Director of Facilities for District 25. Just going to kind of go over our facilities a little bit, where we're at, where we're kind of going with the facilities that we currently have, expenditures, things like that. First, just want to give you an overview. We have 12 facilities in the district, 3 of which are not used for our students. 3 are here, Dunton Administration Building. We have Minor School, which is more in the central part of Arlington Heights, that is leased out to NSSEO, a special education organization, and to a private daycare. And the other building is Rand School, up in the north end of town, Food Kai. Again, that was a District 25 facility years ago, but it's been leased out to them approximately for almost 25 years. Again, that's Japanese school. They have about 100 students during the week and 600 on the weekend on Saturday school. So we've had them as a tenant for a while. But again, 12 facilities. Again, with the years, you can kind of see the varying years of the kind of explosion of growth in the 60s, where the buildings were built and they had additions and then other additions really quickly. Then there was kind of a pause, and then the 90s there was an expansion era again. Once the district portfolio got smaller, then there was a little bit need to expand the buildings in the 90s. And then again, more recently, starting around 2015, there was some expansion in the district. And then most recently for the full day kindergarten, where we expanded on 6 schools for the full day kindergarten program with the $75 million referendum that was passed a couple years ago. With the referendum money, again, that $75 million was the 2 parts. It was to fund the full day kindergarten expansion and to fund capital projects for 5 years. With that, the capital expenditures were kind of just the money we needed to keep maintaining our facilities. It wasn't really to get us ahead. So it wasn't money that was spent to get us 10 years ahead in capital improvements. It was really to fund the projects that were needed at that time based on our projections and what the facilities needed. For just a little bit to give a value of what the portfolio looks like, again, these are all our facilities. The replacement cost here is if we built the exact same square footage school right next to it, just say we built a brand new school of that size, that is what the facilities would cost to construct in today's dollars. So I just want to give a place mark down there, that $650 million in assets that we currently have that we're maintaining. They're in very good shape. We're funding them appropriately, and we look to do that well into the future. And that's why we're going to talk about the amounts of money that we do need to continue putting into our schools. And we have just over 1 million square feet now in the portfolio. when looking at our capital projects, again, capital projects every year are big things like roofs, boilers, electrical improvements, plumbing improvements, lighting, anything that kind of gets replaced. If you think of your home, a furnace goes out, you need to replace it, we just have bigger stuff, right? Boilers are bigger, more expensive, things like that. We're always looking at these categories for safety and mandatory, all the way down to enhancements. Not to say that we're not doing enhancements every year. We are trying to prioritize up in these top 2 or 3 categories for our expenditures to make sure that we're maintaining our buildings and they're reliable into the future. So we kind of use this as a little bit of a benchmark on when we're looking at projects that are coming up. But again, we do kind of dabble in all those areas every year. The life expectancy, this is again just what we use just as kind of a benchmark when we're looking out how long we are expecting something to last. So we put a new boiler in, we want it to last X amount of years. So we're looking at our assets to always look at that. Not to say that if it's that year we're replacing it, some things will keep extending out. A prime example is the roof at South Middle School. It's been there since 1997, but it's in really good shape. So we're going to keep extending it out and doing refurbishments and things like that. We're not just going to rip it off and replace it just because it's past the due date. I'm not going to go through all these. These are in your packet, but these are the top building needs that we see for each building right now. They're variable depending on the building, so every building has a little bit of nuance of what it needs. So one facility might need new cabinets and casework, where another facility might need a new boiler or some more mechanical equipment. So it's variable just depending on how the funds were distributed in the past, where we're at, but in general, we're all at a pretty good equal baseline. It's just some buildings need different things. And with our projections right now, we are currently projecting about $4.3 million to be spent on facility improvements next summer, so in the year of 26. Going out to 2030, approximately around that $4 million number is kind of the number that we're projecting out right now. We do think this is below what we would really need for the facilities into the future, but based on where we're at with the referendum and things like that, we're comfortable at this $4 million mark for the next 5 years or so, and we'll keep looking at that number into the future on what that looks like. I don't expect it to explode, but I think it will be increasing some after the 5 years. And with that, we open up to questions for everything.
So is that capital, oh, sorry.
I was just, what you just shared, Ryan, about your anticipated increase past the 5-year outlook.
Yep.
What are the reasons behind that anticipated increase?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. The buildings are going to be, some things are getting a little bit older. Costs are continuously going up. And our projected, we do kind of a baseline, it's about $6 million. So we probably want to get up more towards that $6 million mark. But again, we need to work with the totality of the budget and not blow that up either. So I think everybody wants to, be at the top and spend all that money, but we're reasonable and we need to be financially sound with our money too. But I think as long as we're closer to that, not going to $0 in investment or a couple $100,000, right, that we can work with that every year in determining what the appropriate amount is.
Are there throughout the district additional safety, building safety needs that need to be consistent across the district that are allocated? Because I know that says on there, here are top priorities for building. But I just know that we've done a huge safety upgrade and other things are there plans within that? For
Can I just clarify, are you talking more student safety or just general building?
Building safety, for example, locks on doors,
Yep.
things like that, as we looked at keeping our buildings safe as a whole. I think there were some things that came up, and I know as they have done the new classrooms and things, there have been updates done to those classrooms. I was just curious if that's in the, because I didn't see it on your.
Yeah, so again, safety, we're pretty standard there. There's a couple of schools that we're still working on updating the door hardware and that, but we're very close. We hope to have that done this year, completely done with those. But yeah, we're really consistent. And if we make changes, we're trying to look across the board. We're not looking at one school. We did pilot something at Dryden that's a little bit different than most of the other schools for safety and security. But in general, we're trying to deploy that across the whole thing.
Excuse the interruption, but we're going to start in 5 minutes in the other room. And in order to get out at 12 o'clock, I need all 45 minutes. But I see you're at questions.
We are at questions.
We're wrapping them up, I think.
I think we have 2 more.
3. I think we got 3
3
now.
more, okay.
One of you two were first. Go ahead.
Mine's probably quick. Do y'all look at capital spend per student compared to the feeder districts? Is the first question. And are we tracking square foot per student in the classrooms?
We do that. I haven't done that recently, but yes, I have not compared it against other feeder districts. I have not seen that compared. It's a really tough number to pin down right now because a lot of the districts they had a referendum, or it's just very variable. It'd be more, I think, on our operational costs that we could do a comparison, but the capital spend is tough just because I wouldn't know how much they put into their facilities in the past or what age they are, things like that. So the capital would be tough.
And just the amount of space per student, at least in the classrooms?
That's, again, I have that from the past. I've not done that since before the thing, so we could definitely run that. No,
I know we looked at it during COVID.
Right.
I just couldn't remember, especially with the expansion of full-day kindergarten additions,
Yep.
if that had been updated.
Yeah, I haven't. That's an easy one to redo, though.
Are we working with a statewide grant to get solar and other systems in so that we can cut our utility bills?
So solar's a little bit tough, just because, again, the funding has been all over the place. It's been coming down quite a bit lately, and we have to time it up with roofs. And it's really tough to plan that and make sure that they line up. We're always looking at it, but we have not committed to that at this point, is going solar in that. I think if the funding would come up more, it'd help. But then it shifts the burden of the utility onto the district, that we have to maintain it and all that. So there's operating costs with that as well. So we have not, we've set the buildings up for some solar. The additions, a lot of the expansions have been set up to explore that. But we just haven't committed to it yet.
What, I guess outside, I know you said the funding comes from the tax, but are there restrictions on the school being able to get money in other ways? Like, are there options? I don't know.
I mean, like I said, there are some independent grants. There's usually a construction grant every year that's $50,000. We apply for that every year. You know, we look at student fees, but raising student fees, even $100, 5,000 kids, you know, it's additional revenue, but it's not, when you're talking against 80 million in taxes, there's no other revenue source it comes anywhere close. So we do look at those things, but we try to make sure that those things, like our student fees cover our consumable costs. Our lunch costs cover our actual cost to serve lunch. So that's, you know, we're not looking to make money off of those things either, if that makes sense. But we do look when things are available. Because we're so property rich, there's a lot of grants that aren't accessible for us because they really are geared towards schools that are more low income. And we had one more back there.
Tax levy set as a dollar amount, not a percentage?
Yes.
Why? I'm just curious. Is that something that's,
Because
how's the number determined?
So the most we can ask for is what we got this year plus CPI. That's the formula. So if CPI for this tax levy is 2.9, so whatever we levied last year goes up by 2.9, that's what we're going to get. That's how the formula works. The rate is determined once the property values are known, and then that's done at the county level.
So that $80 million goes up every year according to CPI?
Yes.
Or capped at 5, right?
Capped at 5. So the
5%.
year CPI was 7, it was capped at 5. Okay, thank you, and we'll go right back to NPR.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin this last part. We need the full 45 minutes in order to complete it. So if you could come in and get your seat. As I told you this morning, the very last activity of the day would be to think about everything we've learned in all of the different presentations today and put together a draft of the SWOT analysis. It's very important for me to repeat the word draft. Some people have asked for some additional information that we didn't get. You're going to be receiving that. We're going to have feedback from lots of different groups about the work we've done, And when we get back together after the holidays, we'll be able to look at that and revise the SWOT that you're going to do right now. Okay? So no real pressure. This isn't a final copy. But knowing that you've had a full morning of data, we want to capture what you think are the really big high pieces. Okay? So I'm just going to ask a simple question, and if you would like to offer an answer, raise your hand. Okay? If you think about every single thing that you heard all morning long, and you were asked the question, if you could only name one thing that you were most proud of, what would it be? Academic growth. Somebody else. Future planning. Yes. Budgeting. Fiscal history. Class sizes small. Oh, boy. Two very good points. Two very good points. Okay, I'm going to just stop right there. I'm only doing this because this is the process that you're going to use. And honestly, you might be able to do this whole thing by just asking the question, what are you most proud of? What do you think was the greatest weakness that you learned about? What might be a great opportunity for us in the future? And from that discussion, you might be able to capture everything you want. However, we've made things kind of easier for you because there are 3 posters on your table. 2 of the posters represent all of the metrics, either in the plus column or in the weakness, need for improvement column. They're all there, so you don't have to shuffle through a lot of pieces of paper. The one you're going to put on top is the one that says SWOT analysis. And when you're done, you're actually going to have a SWOT analysis that's going to look like this. No more than 10 in any quadrant. Less than 10? Okay. No more than 10. I suggest that you have one person take a Post-it pad and be the writer. Everybody else will be the discussion, and when you all agree, yep, that's one of them, write it down and put it up. Okay? Second, very, very important part of the process. Second part of the process. Okay? Do the strengths first. Got them all up here. Then move to the weaknesses. Then move to the opportunities. And finish up with the threats. Okay? It's real easy with Post-it notes because we can put it up here and then we can take one out. Or we might take 2 and combine it into one. But when we're finished, all of you will have a chart that looks like this. I've always gets the question, do all of these have to be orange and all of these? Absolutely not. I just did it because it helps to donate the 4 categories. Don't care what the colors are, more concerned with the content. Okay, final little instructions, and then we'll begin. The SWOT analysis. Again, strengths, weaknesses. Okay, I need everybody right here. Okay, everybody, please. Okay, we're not ready to start yet. I'm still giving instructions. Are we ready? Eyes here. Okay? Eyes here. All right. Who can tell me what the difference is between a weakness and an opportunity? Opportunity is something we're not doing now, but might be a great idea for the future. Weakness is something we are doing right now, but we're not happy with the results. What's a threat? Yeah, something that might come up in the future that could get us if we don't pay attention to it because we don't have direct control. Somebody else has direct control, but we got to keep our eye on it. Okay? Those are the parts. So you'll be listing all 4 of them. When we were all done, this is another district's, I'll be putting yours together into an analysis, and we'll be sending those out. Okay, I chose 3 things that kind of blew me away. Okay? In some cases, it blew me away positively. In some cases, it blew me away. Whoa. Here was the first one. Wow. I would say, wow, in the resource report. There are some unbelievable things. I'm not sure how you are going to limit it to 10, but that's your challenge. Okay? This is something I did not know. Remember, I told you everybody's going to learn something new? Blown away by ruler. Blown away by it. But 100%. It's the 100% that got me on the ruler. Right now, nationally, the number 1 weakness is student well-being. It's not academics. It's well-being. It's the fact that since COVID, we have had enormous stress and pressures, and the well-being of our students are way up there. This one blew me away. It also blew me away when I looked at the numbers of people that you have that are supporting this. It blew me away. Most districts your size have 1 or 2 social workers. They can't even begin to tackle their problems. Huh? Look at your numbers. It's amazing. The amount of money that you invested in this support is paying great dividends. Okay? The next one. And on this one, some wows and some I will tell you that the 56% attendance for teachers, even though if you compare it to the state, you're doing all right. That's a lot of absenteeism. A lot of absenteeism. Then look at 93% retention. That is maybe one of the highest figures I've ever seen. So you've got a lot of really good ones, but we also got those nuggets for improvement. So there are lots of things. They're on the 2 posters that are on your table, all of the findings if you want to look at any of them. But your job is going to be to move it forward. And as you move it forward, you're going to produce your SWOT. I was taught in my training to give you 30 minutes in order to do this because we want to think it big. We want to think it simple. We want to make sure we're not overwhelming the system. So here's what I'm going to do. And again, hang on with me for just another minute. Then it'll be your turn to talk. Okay? I want to wrap up today because when you're finished at your table with your SWOT, we're done for what we're going to do today. You will be receiving, I'm not sure that it's going to be Friday, but by Monday for sure, each of you will receive the full packet of what we did today in a summary of what we learned. And I will be taking all of your posters, giving you all of your posters, and then showing you the draft of what we will be seeking feedback on between now and the next time we get back together. I personally want to thank you, and I'm going to end the way I began because after going through 3 presentations, I feel even stronger. Students, where you stand. All the students. Thank you. Are great members of the team. Dr. K, do you want a final word? All right, we're ready to go. When you finished with your poster, the word for today concludes. Thank you for being a great team.
We have 15 more minutes of talking. 15 more minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Final minute. Final minute. 60 seconds. Final 30 seconds. Final 30 seconds. Finalize that last post-it note. Finalize the last post-it note. All right, everybody. Go ahead and say thank you to your team. If you can hear me, stand up. Yeah, that'll get the blood going. If you can hear me, stand up. Phenomenal. Give Greg a chance to come back here and get settled. Couple reminders before we officially close. The folder of information at your spot, I'd love for you to take home, but bring back if you can remember. I do have extras we'll have for next time, but if you can remember to bring it back, that would be great. Leave all the posters and post-it notes right where they're at. We will collect them, and this is only a draft. We have done nothing in its final form. You'll get a chance to see what everyone has put, and we'll see how consistent the thoughts are. We do have lunch available for everybody. It's just outside. There are boxes for those who want to walk, collect, and go. We also have this space available to us, so if you want to go grab lunch and bring it back in here, this space is still open. But I know some people need to boogie right at noon. So a couple more thanks. I want to say thanks to Stacy for presenting today. I want to say thanks to Andrea for presenting today. Diane loves public praise, so thank you, Diane. And Kendra for presenting today. Obviously, Perry and Brian as well. Thank you very much for your facilitation. And this is just a great reminder that we are not perfect, and we're here to not only acknowledge all that we're doing great, but acknowledge we have room to grow. So I appreciate all of the parents and students for their participation. Once we officially close with the board, could I get all of the students to come up to the table? We want to take a photo and just have a thank you for you guys as well. So stay standing. Board members, get your audio ready. We're going to officially close the meeting. No.
All right, we've arrived at the second community input section of the agenda, and Lana is telling me we have no blue form, so we are going to adjourn. Can I have a motion, please, to adjourn the regular meeting?
Mr. President,
Yes, Kevin?
I propose that we adjourn the regular meeting of the Board of Education.
Thank you, Kevin. And a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Anisha. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, I think the ayes have it. That motion carries 6-0, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
It's officially noon. We did it on time. Thank you, guys.